It's a long weekend, and really appreciate your attendance here because I think we took a bit of effort to put this event together. Nevertheless, hope you have a very good Saturday morning. Okay, my name is Architect Ahmad Yap, so I'm the chairman of Emerging Architects Committee, and of course, I'm this year's convener for PAM World Architecture Day 2025 alongside architect Lizzie here as a co-convener. So today I'll also double up as MC and also triple up as a moderator, so you'll be seeing me quite a fair bit. Hope you don't get bored with me. Okay, so what we'll start off with is a convener speech. So I'll give my convener speech and followed by President's opening speech, and we'll move on to our first speaker. Okay, hope you don't mind. So it's truly an honor to welcome all of you here today, friends, colleagues, and fellow designers, as we gather here to celebrate the spirit of architecture to shape to a better world. Each year, World Architecture Day, also known as WAD, invites us to pause and reflect, to ask ourselves, what does it mean to design with purpose? This year's theme, Design for Strength, calls us to look beyond short-term solutions and to embrace approaches that enable our built environment to withstand, adapt, and rebuild. Because architecture, at its best, does more than just provide shelter. It upholds equity, preserves continuity, and strengthens resilience. Today, we are privileged to have four remarkable speakers who embodied this idea of strength through design. From Malaysia, we welcome architect Alif and architect Ahmad Hazman, Alif, whose works reflect deep engagement with the communities, designing spaces that empower, heal, and bring people together. From Thailand, we are joined by architect Jen Suttahathai, I hope I get it right, whose projects focus on human-centered design and inclusive environment. And lastly, we have architect Anand Sonecha from India, whose community-driven work challenges us to see architecture as a tool for compassion and transformation. Together, their work reminds us that strength is not just in structure. It is empathy, connection, and care. As part of this celebration, PAM is also proud to collaborate with Malaysian Architecture Week, also known as MAW. So we are featuring 18 architecture works/models by PAM members, now on display on ground floor from the 16th to the 24th of October. These models showcase the creativity and resilience of our local architects, reflecting the strength expressed through craft and imagination. So, as we begin today's forum, let's take this opportunity to learn, to question, and to inspire. Let's remind ourselves that design is for everyone, for the people, for the community, and mostly for the future we all share. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll watch the President's speech.
On behalf of Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia, PAM, it is my honor to join the global architectural community in celebrating World Architecture Day 2025, held on the 6th of October in parallel with the United Nations World Habitat Day. This year, the International Union of Architects, UIA, has chosen a theme of profound relevance, Design for Strength. It reminds us that architecture must not only provide shelter but also offer resilience, equity, and continuity, especially in times of disruption and crisis. In an age of climate change, natural disaster, and social challenges, the built environment must rise beyond aesthetics. We are called to design with durability, adaptability, and cultural sensitivity, ensuring that our cities and communities can withstand shocks, recover with dignity, and continue to thrive. And architects, we are more than designers. We are custodians of resilience and hope. Our works shapes safe havens in times and uncertainty, builds continuity for communities, and strengthens the social fabric of society. Sustainability is at the heart of this mission, demanding that we rebuild responsibly, repair thoughtfully, and restore environments with care for future generations. At PAM, we affirm our commitment to nurturing innovation, sharing knowledge, and championing architecture that protects lives and inspires futures. Together, let us embrace this call to action so that our designs continue to serve not just as buildings, but as enduring symbols of strength, resilience, and unity. Design for strength means resilience, care, equity, and cultural continuity. Happy World Architecture Day 2025.
Thank you, President, for his opening speech. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today because he have a commitment in Penang. So he sends his regards. Okay, now we'll move on to our introduction of our first speaker, Architect Alan Tay. Architect Alan Tay is the founder and principal of Atelier Alan Tay Architect, an award-winning architectural practice headquartered in KL, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. AATA was established in 2005 and to date has grown into a medium-sized practice with a wide portfolio of works ranging from large-scale housing and mixed development to commercial. AATA is a versatile practice that has experimented with bamboo and recycled containers as well. Amongst his notable award-winning projects include the Green High-Rise at Seri Kembangan, which won the PAM Award in 2016, and the Jitsin High School New Academy Block, which was the winner in Malaysia Green Building Council Award in Education category in 2022. Please join us and clap for Alan Tay. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Tay. It's good to see everyone here. Some new faces, some familiar faces. Also, welcome our speakers from overseas. It's really an honor to speak alongside of you. My name is Alan. Today's title, of course, is Design for Strength. And before I prepare the slides, also I search through the project that we have done to see whether there's any relevance to the topic. So I'm trying to present our works with that perspective to everyone here today. Bit of, to start the first slide, it's not my project, it's also not me. This is the guy who won the Pritzker Prize in 2022. His name is Kere. He's African, I think probably the first African to win a Pritzker Prize, and I think that shows a very fundamental shift in the selection criteria for a winner. Past years there were a lot of winners that Of course, there are one architect from South America who won it as well, based on his very important works in social housing. But for Korea also, his work is really deeply rooted in place and people, using low-tech materials instead of high-tech, using bottoms-up approach to design and construct rather than architect and contractor, that kind of working relationship. So there's a lot of things we could learn from him. And in some of our works also, we also somehow go along this approach. A bit of my own background. I was born in a family of, 10 uncles and aunties. This is a house I grew up in, a kampong in Bukit Mertajam, Penang. Unfortunately, the house had to be demolished because the land didn't belong to us. It belonged to a landowner, and then it was sold for development, so we have to be evacuated. But a lot of my childhood memories still very vivid in me, and I think that shaped how I design spaces as well. You can see the houses. The house is actually built with half brick. The superstructure is using timber. It used to have a tap roof, but later changed to a corrugated iron sheet. And then in front of the house, there's a veranda where everyone gathers when the temperature is more forgiving, normally in the early morning or in the evening. And I studied in Australia, Tasmania. Those were the formative years when we study how a building would be sited in the natural landscape, looking at the spaces and orientation. We were taught to look at sustainability in a very young, in early years, not because that we want to achieve good energy performance, but just as a natural gesture and respect of nature. I think that embedded in me as well, probably in my whole career, yeah. And as a student, I was also fortunate to go for a student exchange to Norway. And this was the first project we did as I joined the first year studio, and we had to build a small pavilion in the forest, and the timber was supplied by the timber plantation company, and all the first year students have to jointly build a small pavilion in this pine forest for the first week induction course. And I came back to Australia, and then one of the first projects that I did after second year exchange was this surf club. The building is actually sited, in a natural landscape in Tasmania, a very imaginative landscape with the coast, with the sand dunes, with the cliff as well. So I actually scattered the building around the different part of the site. The accommodation will be sitting on the cliff overlooking the ocean, and then the surfboard, the surf club will be sited on the so-called gentle slopes, and then the surfboard building, actually located closest to the ocean, is actually elevated up above the ground as well. So the sections actually determines the so-called the crafting of the spaces rather than the plan. And that somehow also influenced how I initiate our design works. And I finished my thesis based on the site in my hometown, Bukit Mertajam. And I didn't even look back, because after graduation, I totally forgot about all these things. When I came back to Malaysia to practice, it's all about a very commercial work. I worked with two firms before I set out on my own. First with PAB, so where we did master plan, urban planning, and also we have a landscape department as well. And I served a second office before I came out on my own. So it's quite a brief kind of training before I set out on my own. Our first office was just a small 600 square feet office, while the second office, when we shifted to the new office in 2011, I turned the reception into an art gallery. So I thought that, instead of just doing corporate projects, I think we have to do something. So we have to make changes to the nature of work we want to do. So the decision to set up an art gallery wasn't kind of a direct response, but somehow I was following my heart because I've always been interested in art. And so setting up a gallery would give me that kind of space to curate some art and get some stress, de-stress out from my work, you know. And was happy and also very fortunate that we were invited to curate an art festival in Kedah. So this is the Kedah Party Festival in 2016, where we had to design an exhibition building, exhibition pavilion, and it has to be a temporary building. So we utilize the recycled container plus bamboo as well. So it's actually built in the space of 1 week. Of course, the container were prefab before, transported out from KL up to Kedah to curate the exhibition. So we had to build together with the carpenters and builders rather than redesign the building and let the contractor build it. So it's, in a way, it's bring me back to my student times where the architects design and build the buildings that we design. And we had to use a model to communicate instead of using drawing because a lot of details were actually resolved at site. And somehow I think architecture has lost this kind of touch with working with the builders on site and also experimenting certain things, you know, dare to try out new things. Somehow we bogged down by the bylaws, or we worried that the building is not safe, whatever we detail couldn't hold up at site. I think that kind of spirit is lost. So coming back to this project, we had the chance, we gave ourselves an opportunity to experiment. And I mobilized my whole Penang branch office people, 6 of us, to camp there and for 5 days to put this up together for the exhibition. So it turned out to be very interesting and successful. And in the same time, I was invited back to my hometown to collaborate with a local university for a students' project. So I've forgotten about this place, you know, when I was working and living in KL for the past 10 years. So this was in 2015, 15 years after I graduated. And you can see the huge situation where a lot of heritage buildings were actually in a very dilapidated condition. As we speak now, this whole row of shop houses had been demolished and rebuilt with new, so-called new shop houses, no longer maintaining the character because there's no heritage laws to protect all these buildings. And we also did a study. We realized that 33% of the shop houses were actually underutilized, were deserted because a lot of traditional trades couldn't survive, like the traditional tailor shop, the convenience store, textile merchants. They couldn't survive all this. And also because Bukit Mertajam is also rapidly expanding to the suburbs. So that left the city center, the old city center, devoid of human activities. People rather live and work and so-called shop in the new suburban area outside of Bukit Mertajam town. So in 2016, there was actually a great fire that burned the whole wet market building and caused the wet market to cease operation. And the market building was actually a famous local landmark because everyone knows, you know, this building is like the Chowkit market for Kuala Lumpur, yeah. And there's also a lot of problems with the town center because there's a lot of foreign workers who actually flock to the town during the weekends, forcing the local residents to feel that their traditional space were intruded, and they felt that, you know, it's not safe anymore. Not that we discriminate against them, but they just felt that some of the new shops set up by the foreign workers were actually intruding to the traditional spaces. And with that phenomena as well, that I think that caused the so-called problem with the so-called the community, because we have been so-called segmented by the disintegration of the city center with this traditional gathering space. So in 2018, a group of us from different background, we actually came together to organize a local Bukit Mertajam Art and Culture Festival. So we proposed to the city council that we will rent this space for the weekend to curate an art festival, art and culture festival, utilizing this deserted building upstairs of the wet market. And basically we had to also, due to budget reason, we also use a very locally cheap available materials, and of course it's also bamboo. And we initiated together with a group of students, my interns, together with the locals, to actually design these whole spaces. And we also have a very short time span to do this. So it turned out to be a very successful event. There were recorded about 5,000 local residents who came for the event, which lasted for 3 days and 2 nights. Yeah, a lot of activities were happening during the event, the weekend, with performance, even urban sketching, traditional Chinese opera, face painting. And you can see that all the locals actually coming together to be part of the event, you know. So from there, we are not building buildings, but we're actually building communities. And from this process also, I feel that, you know, architecture is merely a tool, and if you can utilize to actually cultivate the sense of community, that's a successful part of the whole process. Yeah, it's not about buildings, but it's actually building communities. And this is my favorite picture as well. This we designed this time tunnel with bamboo, and we hung up all the old photos from the past era. And when the lights is off, you know, all the visitors have to go through this so-called this corridor to experience the place before they enter the exhibition venue. And throughout the years also, I've been engaged to actually work with various local communities and businesses to design various buildings, from schools, factories, medical centers, and even temples as well. So for me, working in KL and working in Penang is very different. Working in Penang is like me part of the community, and I also become a stakeholder for the place. And like I said, the relationship between ourselves and our client is very different. You know, in this case, we are actually part of the stakeholder because we know the place well, and we know who will be using the buildings. Compared to working in KL, where we serve most of them are corporate clients, where we just, you know, build and then we just let go of the buildings. But a lot of these projects actually we keep coming back because we have to do a lot of post-occupancy evaluation. Sometimes we make mistake, we have to come back and correct it. Yeah. So the challenges and opportunities for architects, I think. In today's world, I think buildings actually utilize a lot of resources, you know. We use a lot of natural resources to build. We also create a lot of waste, and we also consume a lot of energy. So therefore, I think our building has to be more responsible. It's not just for the looks and feel, but also to have a greater responsibility to our planet. And truly said, like for example, this building, when Foster designed this project, they even carry out a assessment on the total operation energy utilized in the building, and it turns out that the life cycle of the building actually consumes 2/3 of the total embodied carbon. So that gives us a huge implication. When we design buildings, we have to be considering the energy performance of the building. More so than before. And looking at the geographic region of the whole planet, Malaysia being a tropical country, I think we have to respond to the local context. And by looking at the traditional architecture, I think that gives us a lot of inspiration and science or so-called clues as to how we should approach the building in response to the climate. And of course, always the so-called the traditional shop houses has always been my inspiration, incorporating courtyards and natural skylight into the space. But how to use this in a larger scale building? I think that is the challenges we are facing today. So just a bit of sharing of the profile and the practice. I'll be talking of several projects that we have done. Some is, I think some of you are familiar with already. This is a factory that we did for a client in Bukit Minyak, Penang. So it's actually a oats processing plant, further oats mill, where they export to 60 countries. Yeah, the building has a silo to collect all the raw material, and then it's pumped into a 7-story automated production plant. Then it moves to a 2-story packing building before the final product actually is stored at the warehouse managed by DHL, where they would ship to 60 over countries. But the important part of the building is actually this office and the so-called the cafeteria. We deliberately designed a courtyard up in the 2nd floor to actually create a green space for all the main users of all the building. Even for the corridor, the production area, we also open up some windows for them to actually view into this courtyard as well, kind of like a visual relief, because those working in the production area, they have to remain in the indoor situation for over 6 to 8 hours a day. Yeah. So for the office, we have a double volume space with a natural skylight, so they don't need to turn on the lighting at all in daytime. Just a glimpse of the first project. The second project is a school. On the left, this is basically the typical public high school that we find in Malaysia. Normally, the public schools are actually administered by the Public Works Department, and the emphasis is actually on speed and construction. Yeah, so they actually want to go for IBS, industrialized building system, but we took another approach. We actually looking at this. It's very program driven. I mean, it's very hardware driven about construction, speed, and also housing all the so-called classrooms. But I think they neglect the well-being of the user. So in this case, we try to break away from this traditional narrow corridor typology, where we introduce more roof terraces and wider corridor and gathering space for the space outside the classroom. Yeah, it's more of a software, people-driven, rather than just checklists, design checklists where they have to have 24 classrooms, 4 science labs, 1 canteen, 1 library, that kind of checklist design. Yeah. So we took a very different approach because our view is that the pursuit of knowledge, or so-called, is not just inside the classroom. I think the students actually learn from each other outside the classroom more so nowadays, because you can just, by the click of your cursor, you can find all various knowledge and information you can find on the internet. So for the students, actually, they would lose interest if their teachers is just bragging about ABC or a certain formula. So for us is how to actually create this interactive space for the students to mingle around. I think that's more important. You can see that the corridor is not 1.5, it's actually widened to 10 feet, 3 meters, and in some cases actually extended out to have some roof terraces. And we have a interesting staircase to link up all the floors. This is not a fire staircase. This is actually just a non-fire staircase, but it's very important because all the levels of the classrooms will be interestingly linked up, instead of a fire staircase that is normally located in the enclosed area, whether on the far end of the building. So the facade here is a bit of reminiscence of our so-called our so-called traditional veranda space of, just now I talked about the kampong house. And this veranda space is actually like an extended space from the classroom where the students would then interact. The staircase also is carefully stitched into the space without any columns. So we have to tie all the steel beams to existing RC structure so that the space below the staircase also could be utilized and without any hindrance. And these two white green cubes were actually designed to create some visual interest as well, so that you have the points and the lines and the planes, the three work together to form a cohesive social network for the students. So this is a view from the top towards the first floor. That means from the fourth floor looking down to the first floor. So there's no single staircase that is overlapping each other. They was like just intertwined with each other so that it created a more interesting circulation space. And true enough, the students actually don't rely on the lift to go up to the classroom. Because of this staircase, they would actually happily use the staircase to go up to the classroom from the lower floors. So there are some data on the GBI because we actually went for the GBI accreditation. So it's actually one of the first public high school to go for GBI. Of course, under GBI, the main thing is actually the energy performance. And over the years, I contacted the school headmasters to try to get some information on the energy performance of the school. I think whatever you do, you can justify with beautiful pictures, but nothing more realistic than getting some data from the electricity bill. Yeah. So this was taken in 2019, shortly after completed. This is the new academic block. This is actually the old campus building. The school hall is here. Below is the teacher's office. And then, so these are classrooms that surrounding the school hall. Consider the old building, the Bangunan Lama. This is the old building. And the new academic block with the multi-story car park is, the new building is actually this column here. So when we commissioned the building, of course the new building still not fully utilized. The student haven't shifted to the new academic block yet. Eventually we house the senior high school students here and the junior students here. So the Form 1 to Form 3 will be using the classroom on this side, and then the Form 4, Form 5 and lower upper 6 will be in this new academic block. The school had to run 2 sessions because they don't have enough classrooms last time. So with these 30 over classrooms, we could do it 1 session in the whole morning. So the teacher's classroom, the teacher's office also, we only need 1 session. So we actually reduce the aircon loading. But all the classrooms are all natural ventilated, just with some mechanical fan. Okay, we don't have any aircon. So when we start commissioning the building, the energy, of course, the consumption is very low. But eventually, in 2022, this is the eventual results. It also shows that the new building has a much lower energy consumption, 61,000 per annum, compared to the old building, still very high, 98,000. It was 166,000. So overall, we would bring down the energy consumption by about 25%. Yeah. Even these two, the rough GFA is similar, but the energy consumption is 2/3 of the old buildings. I think because also the old building has older electrical fittings. It's not the LED light. So I think the school should go for to upgrade all these existing mechanical MAE fittings as well. But of course, on the passive design side, I think that actually speaks the volumes of the effectiveness of the design. That means that we would use less energy to operate the building. So we also incorporate a lot of green space throughout the building to allow the students to access to green spaces, because most of the time, our public schools, right, the only green space is the sports field, the padang. Even the canteen, the concourse area are fully cemented. So I think this is a great effort for students to actually get in touch with nature, to get back to the so-called the basics of integrating teaching space with natural environments. So the project won MGBC award in 2022. Okay, the so-called one back to the high rise. So this is the KL scenario where we mostly serve the property developers. And when we took up this project, we also tried to challenge the so-called what is vertical living, yeah. Being somebody who grew up in kampong and grew up in the so-called the landed housing, in the so-called the housing estates, we always often have access to green space, right? So the green space forms the central so-called community hub for the residents. And it takes up about 10% of the site area. But when we go higher, the challenge is that, you know, often the green space are sacrificed because the local authority only want 10% green. The requirement is only 10%. But if you calculate the so-called the green ratio for this community, each of the residents actually have about 6.75 meters square per person. When we go higher, we only have about 1/4, 1.68. So our hypothesis is, can we achieve back the same green space percentage for high rise? It's possible if we have a 40% green ratio. So that's the calculation. If we have 40% green ratio, we would be able to achieve the same green ratio as in the landed housing. So in this project in Serdang, it's a 4-acre site where we have to do a plot ratio 4 development. The total units is about 675 units of residential units. Yeah. And normally the approach for a typical design would be that taking the brief from the client, they want small units, they want 2 bedrooms, they want 3 bedrooms, and we would just basically build out the blocks and in the individual manner, right? This is kind of the typical approach. But for us, we try to link up the towers. We call this a soft joints. Soft joints is where there are spaces where it's non-residential unit, but it's actually some pocket areas, pocket gardens, where the residents would be able to interact. And this serves as a bridge or linkages to the various massing or the various towers. So we took a different approach. You can see that the overall building also is shorter because we don't need to compress the units to go higher to avoid to create a so-called distancing. Because of the guideline, we need to have some minimum distance between the blocks. So when we link up as well, we actually can create more units per floor because of this space are not wasted compared to this one. We actually link up the units together. But in the core area, we also created some pocket gardens. So this is the end result. This is a drone picture from the so-called looking into the central green area in the podium. And you can see the tower B is shorter with the roof gardens. And the tower A, there's also a series of communal space that is linked up to this roof garden. So you can see that there are 2 horizontal planes, one on the podium, one on the upper floor, compared to a typical single floor podium on top of the car parks. This is layout of the podium floor on level 6. So we have units here because we do not need such a big communal space. And these units also, we call it the garden units, where some purchasers actually likes to live on the same level as the pool, because then from the balcony they can catch a glimpse of what's happening on the pool area, and also they have access to a lot of greeneries as well. For the Tower B, this is the podium area where it's housed all the communal facility. This corner here is designed for the playground. So for the pool, we did not have a kind of a typical Olympic size training pool, but we actually designed to have a very organic shape to work with the geometry of the site. And this is the level 16 and 17. This is so-called the second communal space, elevated up the tower. So we actually open up these units, push it up 2 floors to create a sky terrace that stitches together on the roof garden of the Tower B. So this is the view from the access road. You can see that this sky terrace actually breaks down the scale of the tower massing tremendously. And from inner side of the pool area, you can see this as well. And there's also a vertical landscape that defines the corridor of the single loaded unit. Go back to the floor plan here. There are some single loaded units here. So these are where the vertical landscape is located. And the roof gardens for Tower B is this one, with some refractive pond that also provides some evaporative cooling. Together with the stack effect, because of the cross ventilation through this sky terrace, we are able to draw the hot air up from the stale air for the air well on the lower levels. Yeah, so this effectively cools down the whole building and provide better air quality to the units. So these are details of the level 17 sky terrace. It's a double volume communal space. It has to also hold up the loading from the upper floors. So this actually is the beams, but we work with the engineers to tweak it to more of a very organic shape. So it's not straight, but it's actually kind of like a curve. And every beam has a different detail, kind of like a metaphor for a forest, you know, where the tree canopies actually changes as you walk through the spaces. And this is actually the air well from the units below. So you can see that this also helps to bring natural light into the space and helps to have the cross ventilation that would draw the stale air from the air well. This is actually the pocket garden for the lift lobby area. So every 3 floors, there's 2 pocket gardens located in the front and the back of the lift lobby, so that we create natural light and ventilation through the lift lobby without having to have air conditioning or artificial lighting. This is a view from the main road. That also creates a very interesting character for the facade of the building as well. Not just units, but there are some pocket gardens and spaces that adorn the facade of the building. Yeah. So the roof garden for the Tower B, the trees were actually transplanted from the sales gallery. When we finished the sales marketing activity for 2 years, reaching the 3rd year, the so-called sales gallery located at the corner of the site had to be demolished to make way to build the roots, right? So we transplanted all the trees to this Tower B. Yeah. And then this vertical landscape and the so-called the pocket garden again for the single units here. You can see that there's a sense of horizontal continuity rather than a vertical contrast. Even in this floor, you can see, you know, if I don't tell you this is level 16, you wouldn't know, right? It's like a podium. It feels like a podium. Because of the horizontal connectivity, it gives you that horizon rather than a vertical view. My staff did some animation to show how all these green spaces were integrated together with the tower. So, and it's not easy to do this because we have to do many untypical floor. The normal approach would be a ground floor plan, a car park plan, and a typical tower plan. And that goes the job, and you collect the fees. I think that's the easy way out. But we actually took a harder route. You can see so many typical, so-called non-typical floor in order to achieve this. And so much coordination needed as well. Thanks to our engineer who also willing to cooperate with us. So the net result is all this green space interspersed with the tower on the ground, on the podium, on the so-called second podium, also the sky terrace area, and the pocket gardens that link up all the tower components, all together forming a new so-called landscape integrated development. And our last calculation was actually 66%. Previously was 58. So I'm very proud to say that our green space is even better, is more than 60%, yeah? Compared to even the initial 40% we're trying to achieve. So I keep coming back to this building because I use this as my teaching material for my students. And we also did some research on the energy consumption, so-called the BEI, Building Energy Index. Typically, a Malaysian building is about 135 kilowatt per meter square per year. But for this project, the common area, we got the bills from the management office, the electricity bills, the general bills, over the total common area, including the car parks. It works out to be 22.2 kilowatt, which is very, very low. Yeah. So here are some data on the green spaces, or the, including the green and the blue as well, the pool and the reflective pond. Total is 66, yeah. And we have also managed to build a plant, 660 trees altogether, yeah. So it actually has more trees prior to the development, yeah. So, of course, those were our completed works. And during COVID-19, we also were given another opportunity to study on another high-rise development project. So looking back, what we have done, we have done placemaking, we have curated art exhibitions, art festivals, we have done public buildings, we have done high-rise. In this project, we try to marry everything together. Can we do placemaking in the high-rise? That was a challenge we gave ourselves. And whether we can uphold social resilience, in the same time, keeping the biophilic, and also talking about the end user as well, whether we can be more inclusive. So this was a study, feasibility study of this site, where we actually try to have a new strata housing model. Yeah, the facilities, of course, is also interspersed up in the towers, not just focus on the podium, and also looking at a wider user group as well. So we started to look at the end user, who are they? Rather than categorizing them to 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom buyers, we start to look at the actual users, whether they are family buyers, whether they are young millennials starting to work and save up to buy their first property, or maybe a mother, a homemaker, who wants to nurture her family in a more inclusive way, in a more social responsible way. And we also look at the creative community, because I myself is very interested in art, and with whether we can incorporate a art space within the project as well. So we also did a survey with 200 respondents for this project. We asked them, what would they need for this project? Of course, the first highest priority would be a link to an MRT, public transport. They also want an urban farm, community garden. They would like to have co-working space facility, elderly care friendly facility, and also childcare enrichment center. These are the checklists of the typical respondent we receive. So from there, we derive a new criteria for planning and design of this. Rather than just following the unit size and unit type, we introduce a new cost structure. For example, whether we can reduce the maintenance cost of the project. We talk to developers, so that we also allow them to, get the end users involved in the programming of the spaces. So this site is actually located in Batu Sebelas Jeras. It's very near the MRT station for Batu Sebelas. It's shown here in the center. It's a triangulated site, only 2 acres. Minus the road reserve surrendered, you left with about 1.5. But we have to do a TOD, 1 to 6 plot ratio. It's quite challenging. But the site is actually very close to the MRT, BT Batu Sebelas, and it's along the Sungai Langat River. So that presents a new opportunity for us. We could actually create a linkway through the river reserve to get to the MRT station. And also it has a good access to the main road as well. During COVID, I also living in a condominium, so I actually experimented with urban farming myself, working with the local residents. I sketched out this planning for the urban farm because there's a stretch of land, a green strip next to an existing lake. Okay, so during COVID, actually, we grouped together to set up this urban farm for about 1 year altogether, from starting, initiating, and until the full blossoming or the full-scale urban farm. We took about 1 year to get this done, with the help of about 50 residents, 50 units residents. That means that out of 300 over units, right, about 50 is about like 20%. Yeah, about 20%. Less than 20% of the residents actually involved in this project. So we turned this underutilized space into planting plots for edible greens, even using recycled pellet. This neighbor, Mr. Ong, actually helped to build a composting pit as well. So all the kitchen waste from the condos, especially all the participating residents, because during MCU everyone cooks at home, right? 3 meals minimum. So we have a lot of kitchen waste daily. So we even measured every day we actually take out 40 kilograms of kitchen waste. Yeah, so it's actually quite good but unfortunately our local city council do not incentivize the residents who reduce our kitchen waste. You know, one day we hope that the local city council would actually incentivize the residents or communities who would create less so-called solid waste, because we are actually reducing the waste collection costs. And the urban farm is not just an urban farm. It actually gathers people together. Even we can actually have some activities along it as well. Like this Mr. Ong, he actually teach the local kids, our kids, to identify plants. And I actually did some art so-called art workshop as well, to paint on the tree trunks to decorate the flower, the plants, the planter boxes. And you can see here the communities together with the kids actually also involved in this as well. So all in all, it's very rewarding experience. And in this project, actually, we try to get everyone involved. You can see that when we're harvesting, we are sharing together with the neighbors. So I try to bring this urban farm concept into these proposals. So basically, it's try to have an urban farm established at the ground of the site, because we have the river reserve, which we could lease from JPS, the so-called drainage department, so that the kitchen waste could be then recycled and the composting go back to the urban farm, and then we have the food back to the participating neighbors. So that translates into a concept for the placemaking for this high-rise project. But on the mid-level as well, we have Artist Village, where it's linked to the Tower B. This block is actually affordable units, and this one is the free price units. Again, we try to link up, families in the neighborhoods to form a better community instead of segregating them, which is the typical approach by the property developers. So this is a site planning. So this is where the proposed urban farm is located, and that would be linked to the Batu Sebelas MRT station. And you can see that the road is also had to be surrendered for the access slip road into the main road as well. A very tight site. You can see that we fully utilized the footprint that given to this site, because we had only 1.5 acre left. On the site planning, on the ground, we do away with grand entrance lobby, fully air-conditioned space, where our ground floor is all natural ventilated with the drop-off area. And then you also have a nice so-called staircase that link up to the upper floor where we have the co-working and the childcare center. On the ground, we convince the developer not to sell in units, but to keep them as to have retails that would contribute to the community. Not renting to any like car workshops. That is, I don't think is relevant for this. And on the upper floor, we actually talk to some operators as well, because most of the projects in the developer's approach is that we just provide the minimal just to comply with the authority requirement. Okay, the childcare center, the tadika, all this just minimal requirement. But in the end, these are all white elephants, because in order to get the compliance approved, then they will do away with it later. Instead, we also think about whether we can incorporate a staff quarters within the project. So this could be rented out to the security guards company. So we can then get more rental income from the tenants. Yeah. On the podium, this is so-called all the basic requirements, but we also have a clubhouse for elderly as well, with so that they can conduct cooking classes and things like that. And then the upper floor will have the gym at the podium level. Then this is so-called the mid-level, level 30, where we suggested to have an artist village and some co-living space for the artists as well. So visiting artists or resident artists could then conduct art classes that would benefit the residents. So some visuals for the artist village, double volume space, and urban farm, also located at level 30. So it's not just a hardware-driven design. For us, we actually look at the various software that would enrich the living experience for the community. And there's a huge stark contrast between our proposal and the existing apartment that was completed recently. You can see that there's a lot still, green space that would pocket greens and roof gardens that would enrich or increase the green ratio. At the same time, also the various programs that disperse over the buildings. On the units, okay, this is a sectional schematic section. Typical facility will be level 10. Then we have another facility on the level 30. This is, of course, a very important diagram. You can see that there are various unit types that cater for different user group. And in summary, we have units that 10% of it cater for the elderly, because we have units where the bathrooms are wheelchair friendly. Because most of the apartments in Malaysia are designed without wheelchair friendly bathrooms. Also, we look at the millennials as well, what would be their requirements. So therefore, we actually propose a co-working space within the project as well. Yeah, so we even look at the daily lifestyle of the end user. How would they use the spaces in different time of the day, for homemaker to a millennial to elderly. Yeah. So instead of just planning it as a so-called with a luxuries facility, we look at the different user group. So this is a visualization of the building from the street level, and on the ground. So like I said just now, the typical ground floor doesn't have a grand entrance or grand lobby, but it's a very people-centric space, like almost like a local street market, yeah, where it's all natural ventilated and people can interact. So like this, another view. So that's almost the end of the. So to me, I think the future of architecture for us is moving towards a more human-centric design, emphasizing on social resilience and equitable, inclusive spaces. And the building not just being sustainable, we are able to maybe generate more energy and maybe possibly more happiness as well. And with that, I'll end my sharing today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Architect Alan, for sharing a wide range of projects that involve community, ranging from markets all the way to high-rise apartment. We all know apartment is not easy to incorporate community-centric design. Okay, our next speaker is Architect Jen. Architect Jen is an architect and urban designer from Thailand. Her work focuses on community-centric design, urban data, and placemaking, with a strong emphasis on translating local voices into spatial strategies and revitalization plans. She has practiced internationally, including in New York City, on architectural and urban design projects. As co-founder of City Connects, she leads projects integrating design, adaptive reuse, and urban vision planning. Her projects range from community-driven learning programs to large-scale urban strategies, always grounded in participation and local context. She frequently speaks and lectures, advocating for inclusive and resilient approaches to city making. Finally, she holds a master's in advanced architecture from Cornell University and is a Fulbright Scholar alumna. Please, everyone, let's welcome Architect Jen to stage. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's my honor to be here with you guys today, and my name is Suttahathai Niyomwas, or you can call me Jan. Jan is just like the month. We do nickname in Thailand, as you see. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I've been doing and what City Connects actually are working on, and also following the topic of today's session. So starting a little bit about what are we gonna focusing today. Most of the time that our projects are working, as you might heard, is very community-based. So I will be focusing a lot on belonging, engagement, and also one word is continuity. Because we also, in our work and in our team, we believe that architecture doesn't need to be monumental, and it can be local, responsive, and rooted in people's life. It can be in your daily life, it can reflect voices, it can grow together with the community. So my path is actually, I am an architect, a licensed architect in Thailand. I also practice urban design. I am also a youth advocate, because me, myself, is once young people that got this opportunity to start this initiative and then run projects. I am a Fulbright alumni. I study at Cornell, and I also part of ASA, which is the Association of Siamese Architects in Thailand. My hometown is actually in Hat Yai City, not so far from here. I study my undergrad in Bangkok, School of Architecture and Design, Kim Il-sung University of Technology. Before, I went to New York for my master and also practiced there for a year, and then came back to do some work back in Thailand. So what is City Connects? Actually, we are an interdisciplinary design collaborative platform that focuses on community-based design, where we design communities to improve the city. So we not only design for them, but we design with them. I working along with my partner that is also engineer, social studies students, or designers, industrial designs, or also event designers, and also some that do communicative design and strategics. Nowadays social media is very impactful, so we have that leg that can actually broaden or work into a wider range of people. So we are trying to speak how architecture can be soft and also transformative. How can it be deeply human, and talk more about what people actually need. So we use participatory design and local placemaking as a tool to be part of our architectural dialogue. As you can see here, we involve a lot on the participatory design process. some of the work or the way that we do it is very change and adapt to the local context. We work together with the stakeholder in each area. Like if we got a new site, we need to go to actually live with them or to understand them, to see like what is the strategy that you need to use to work with that particular city or particular site? Because not every time it can be like super deeply rooted in local. It might start from the municipality. It might start from the architect. It might start from the young people or older people. So you need to understand that context first and then design a framework or the question itself to ask particularly to respond to those kind of questions. So typically our framework is like in a cycle. We started from like defining the topic and asset that each site have, and we explore the design before we kick off with like some experimental or co-developing work, and then we will evaluate and develop it, and then it will go in a cycle again, because as you see, like one of the important parts is like how you can change from experimental design into an actual design or a physical spaces. So this is how we started. We started very small. We got some fundings and we do some exhibition. We do like walking tour as a toolkit. But from all of this, every time we wanted to have people in the city to see themselves as part of the city's transformation, to make them feel sense of belonging, like using creative or design as a tool or an answer for them to see like, oh, actually, what they already have in the city, it can grow more, it can change more. So let's say this one. If some of you have been to Hazman City before, you will know that we are a very multicultural city and we are very famous of our food. This is one of the restaurants that we work with. We designed the space with them and also the menu. So this is actually just Thai traditional dishes in a new way. So we hosted like a walking tour to actually understand the history of the city, how the city grows and everything. And we give them like a camera. So it's a compact camera that everybody can actually take pictures. It's a one-time use camera. And then all the pictures that we have, the asset that we have in our hand, we actually exhibited on this like wall of this old houses. We talked to the owner and the owner said like, yeah, my wall is very old. If you think you can do something with it, then do it. But then after that, we kind of like try to promote it online and we put like a Google map location there. And after that, we reached like 100,000 feedback and checked in to all these small spaces, because first thing, everybody that joined our walking tour went back to see their like the pictures, right? And then they bring their friends, and then it became like a hashtag or social movement thing. So that is how we started out. Like we started out very small, but then the impact of one project made us realize that, oh, actually we can use our skills in a way that maybe you can turn into something more physical or more like architectural. So this is one of the examples that actually follow up from that just small activities of the walking tour or cultural asset that we have in Hazman City. This is a project that is a research-based project. So we started to like work in this neighborhood in Hazman City. It's called like Hazman Sidewalk. So it's actually already a market that they have like monthly. But then they told us that, okay, see, they have this empty spaces here, and they have this spaces also, which is like an open green spaces that they don't have anything, and they have this one old building. So they said like, can you just like work with us? Because we already have this market like monthly, to just like try on something new or just input some activities, because they have spaces but they don't have people working on them with them. So on the other hand, for us, we have people that wanted to work, but we don't have spaces. So that's this first collaborative way that we figure out that works in our hometown. So we kind of like define the activities. We do some like focus groups along with like 40 organizations, including like designers, municipality, active citizens, and also young people, to kind of define what kind of activities they needed in the city. And then you can see like throughout like the whole walking area of like, it's like only 800 meters, but we kind of like try to lay out all the activities that needed and link the the program together. So this project kind of like adopts the participatory approach to engage more like a diverse range of stakeholders. And then we wanted to talk more about like how this collaborative workshop can actually open up more of a discussion of being something more permanent, or making people just kind of understand more that, hey, you know, like just simple market can actually change. Using simple design can be lighted up the city in a way. So this is how it came out. And this is like, and every time that we do exhibition, we have like this small participatory design to actually collect the data that we wanted, because we feel like every time that we do focus group, it's not like it's opening like totally public. So we have a chance to ask the public now. So we form the questions and we do the exhibition that alongside with the participatory board and everything, because we believe that placemaking shouldn't be just posted on the wall. So this is one of the challenge that we took on, because we feel like a lot of the time when I said, or people said that, hey, I do a lot of participatory design, placemaking process, it's always stuck like, okay, then you just do post it, right? You just ask question, you just working and then asking question again and again in the same loop. And it's also like very problematic with the community, because they feel like, oh, yeah, I've been asked this question before. Yes, I answered this before, like nothing changed. So we don't want that to happen. And we were trying to figure out the way that we can use this framework that we have in a more creative way, because we already have the data, and how can we still keep collecting it and use it in the future use. So every time that we do project, we try to keep on the same research. And this is one of the next projects still in Hat Yai City. It's the same city, the same hometown that I live in. It's called Revisiting Kim Yong. It's actually part of the Design Week, the Southern Design Week of Thailand, Pak Tai Design Week, which is, this is the first time that we have the Design Week. Is like 3 years ago. They give us like a funding to kind of like kick off, and they said like, oh, you have research, do you want to test something out? So we reached out to this market owners, which is Kim Yong Market. It's a very famous market in Hat Yai City. We actually did some like research study of like, to understand more about the city, and also for you guys to understand Hat Yai City context more. We are actually a small town in the southern part of Thailand, but we are the second largest metropolitan city in Thailand. So we often been mistaken as the city capital of the southern, but actually we just are part of Songkhla province. And the city actually grew from, from having like the junction, which is the train station. You can see here, like way before that, Thailand used a lot of like boat transportation, like by sea, right? So before that, Hat Yai City is just like an empty land. But then when it comes the train and the transforming of the junction that came to my hometown, it's actually broadened up a lot of like trading culture, exchange and multicultural lifestyle into the city. So one of the important parts is in the city center here. You can see here's the train station, and here's like the main shopping mall area. And this is, number 2 is the Kim Yong Market. So this is the 3 first street that we have in Hat Yai City. And the trading culture actually embedded in people's mind, because one time that we do like a participatory design, we ask them like, hey, what do you understand of public space for you? And people say like, oh, good public spaces is where they sell good food. Like good public spaces where I can eat, or I can share my like what I cook with my friends and everything, or I can sell stuff. Like trading culture and gastronomic culture is like deeply embedded in Hat Yai City people. So after we did this study, we kind of like go to the site and try to find a way to make people revisit the market again. Because the market is still there, it's still ongoing, but at first they have 3 floors and they use only 1 floor now. So we wanted to use like the space that is, this one actually used to be like a cinema, but they don't use it anymore. So we want people to revisit Kim Yong again through like 3 time periods. We're gonna show like the past, present, and the future for them to see the space, how it can be transformed. So we use like the neighborhood to shape, not by monument, but collective presence. Like I said, we're trying to not only use post-it on the walls, but we still have it. We also have like some designers working with us. We have a lot of empty lots that we define throughout 3 floors. So we have like 9 design intervention throughout like the empty market lots, as you can see. And then we work with like young designers, new designers that they wanted to experiment their ideas. But the task is that you need to use data from the city, historical or cultural asset that the city have. So this is what we actually came out with. We have like from mapping, we have directory design, we have narrative intervention, infographic data. You can see from like just an unused space here, we transform it into something like an exhibition spaces that has like photo exhibitions, or we just like fix some lightings, we work together with the market, and then this is how it turns out. So we wanted to change this lost space into something that use like technology and design. This is like a mapping technique. So actually, if you write something, we kind of like send it through the computer, and it will like projecting it's what people actually wrote here also. So it's actually create sense of like, oh, this space can be something else, but then also like older people will bring their nieces and say like, hey, do you know, like I used to came here a lot. It's like used to be a cinema. I came here like every weekend. But then the young people was like, oh, but I just went there recently because this kind of exhibition came out. So in the span of like, I think it's like 5 days, we have or 7 days. I think it's 7 days. So we have the total visitors numbers of like 10,000 attendees. And we also won the national award of the Creative Regeneration Award for Creative City Awards. So from that project, this one is actually, we kind of reflect ourselves like festival in design or experimental spaces. It's kind of like a starting point that you can lead or guide to something even bigger. And then we just ask ourselves, okay, what's next? We've been working in Thailand, in other cities as well. We work in Bangkok. We also work in Pattaya, or we also work in Nan, or even in our WAD project. But we feel like Hat Yai City is like an ongoing project that we work with it for a very long time. It's a span of like almost 4 years of research now that we collectively collect every small detail, small focus group, every kind of like research. We don't want it to do it over again and again, and it's very personal for us because it is our hometown. So we wanted to ask ourselves, okay, what can we do next with all this information that we have? Like we have like the details of like the history timeline, what has been, or what kind of activities people like, and we also like wanted to like create sense of belongings, and like we do a lot of focus group. We define the spaces already, so then it's kind of like a placemaking process that we already have this blob of place vision of what people wanted to see. So now we wanted to create more of a public spaces in their own way. So we wanted to test it out into this experimental spaces, but now we wanted to work on some places that can be turned into a permanent space, which we have a chance to work in this project called Mahasane, which is Sane actually means charms. The street is actually called Sonecha Nusan, which is the 4th street of Hat Yai City. If some of you have ever visited Hat Yai, this is Lee Garden Plaza, which is a famous mall in the city center that face a lot of downside, which is they have like a bombing situation like 10 years ago. You might see the news, and right now they kind of like renovated the building, but they didn't fully operate it. They opened only the ground floor, the first one, the second floor, and the owner is very I would say forward vision, have visions of like, they want us to kind of like test it out the space that she has on the underground level to build something more of a public spaces, gallery, or experimental spaces for architects and also designers to actually use the space and for public use in the future for workshop and everything. So it's a kind of like a cultural hub that we wanted to test it out. So it's not only in this one site, but it's the starting point that that's why we picked the site. So I got a chance to be hosted the design week again. This is the third time that we had a design week, and I hosted City Connects actually hosted the venue in Hatyai City. So we actually do this experimental space, adaptive reuse of underutilized space. You can see like this is the underground level. It doesn't look so bad. It just needs some like decorating or just renovating some lighting or insert some content in it. So from this kind of space, we work together with them to create this kind of design intervention and working along with, it is actually my honor to work along with around 100 designers, active citizens and team in my hometown. And also from other city in Thailand that they wanted to come and work together with us. I counted everything like all small like part of exhibition or artists that they wanted to come and join, or even like larger scale of like doing like interactive design, or like a lot of like markets that happening in the space, or even like you can see here, this looks like a furniture showcase because one of our sponsors is actually Index Living Mall because they do a lot of like, they sell furnitures, but then we just like, well, instead of showing your furnitures at your space, what about you show it in our space? So they actually use some of their furnitures to showcase and we work with them to decorate it in, and redesign it into more of a public space setting. So City Connects actually works as not only the designers in some of the exhibition, but we also work as a curator, and we see the whole project as like managing how it can work together alongside with all the designers and stakeholders in the city. And we also did like 9 more venues, as you can see, is along the street. So it's not only in one ground level context, but we also do like street, citywide approach. And this is the example of like more like the festivality that we have, because it's very hard to bring people downstairs. So we were just like, okay, it's already like a travel like tourist spot. How can we kind of like attract people and kind of like tell like, hey, we have this thing going on. So this actually worked together with AirAsia. They supported us, sponsored us with this mobile stage. So it's kind of a funny idea because actually at first we designed it with the color that we have here, which is like pink and blue and everything. And then one day my friends just called, hey, I think we need to change it into red. And I was like, why? And it's like, oh, we got more sponsors coming in. So that is one of the approach that I wanted to tell, that is like, maybe sometimes you need to kick and start on something, but then you can find a way to sell them into a greater good. So this is the mobile stage that we have, and they actually do some activities with us. People come and dance together and have a space for youth to perform. We have around like 20 to 30 performers throughout 11 days of the festival. And this is some other spaces that we have throughout the design week. This is actually an old skate park that we do like also again mapping and interactive design. So instead of using as a skate park that cannot use anymore, people sliding in it or young people actually use it and play with it. And also we have this, actually because of the security sense in Hatyai City is still like a huge thing. So they want people to get in only in one way. So this staircase is not being used anymore. They wanted to block it. And we just like, we don't want it to just put like some lines, not like to people not going up. So we just asked one of the landscape designers to just like, hey, can you work with us to kind of like redesign the spaces in a way that people can go up and see something, but they cannot walk past it. So at the end of the stairs actually was filled with trees. And then they cannot actually walk past it, but then they can use it as like a public spaces, sitting area, reading spaces, or even photogenic usage. And on the right hand here, we call it a Designer X project. So it means designer collaborating with local stores or local stakeholders in the city. So this one is one of our designers that they actually do this only this furniture. We work with them to collaborate with one of the shop owners in my hometown. They do this kind of like fabric thing. As you can see, like they change their chairs to use the material, like the local materials, and design it into a way that they can see like, oh, like one of the shop owners told me like, oh, I never thought that the thing that I sell daily can turn into something new like this. So they also sell some of the furniture already. And we also have like the outside approach of like how to narrate the cultural asset that we have. This is like mapping outside of the building. And we also have some like space for young artists or another project that work with the local. But this one is, the designer actually works with the clock, the store that sell like clocks and everything. And the owners told us that, oh, Jan, do you know, like, normally we sell others people brands all the time. I would love if I can have one of my own. And then that's how the designers, industrial designers came in and tried to design a new approach of watch and clocks for them. And also we have this stage design and immersive show. This is actually a cabaret show in Hazman City, which is already kind of famous for foreigners. On the other hand, it's very funny how we ourselves, locals, doesn't even know that this exists. So we wanted to like, so we work with them and we do some like focus group study and everything to kind of figure out like what happened and why local people don't actually go there. It's very cheap actually, relatively just like $5 per show, even like $4 for Thai people. So they said like, oh, because they are the same, so if you go there once, you don't want to go there twice. So we use this kind of like immersive way or lighting design to help them to be able to change the style of the performance. They can still perform the same thing, but they can find new approach, maybe weekly or monthly, to have a new show. And then another thing is like we work with this foundation that it's like a lot of old people in the foundation, and they told us like, oh, this street is like a very famous street actually. Songkran Festival, Chinese New Year Festival. Every time the municipality always hosted their events there, but this is one of the first time that they got included. Like a lot of locals give their feedback to us. Like this is actually the first time that it's not outsider people coming in to just host some event, but it's actually ground and rooted and working with them. So you can see like this is the exhibition that we designed ourselves, and this is some of the space that we also kind of renovated with the owners. And yeah, so in the span of like 10 to 11 days, we actually, this just happened like actually 2 months ago. So it's still in the process of reevaluating and collecting how this process-driven architecture is a prototype of how we kind of like question how privately owned spaces can become like an urban commons to the future in the city, and can we use this framework in other city as well? Because it's nothing new. It's just adapted to being more personal or to be more adaptive to the city context. And if you understand the city, like in Hazman City, we try a lot to work with the public sector. We try a lot before to kind of like wanted to make it like super public. We asked the municipality, can you give us some this land wasn't used before, or this park, can we just like work with it? We have fundings, we can find sponsor, but then the process took more time, let's say. So if we already have this privately owned or like people that have space that wanted to work with us, I think privately owned public spaces can be one of the ways to show them, show the public sector or decision makers that, hey, you see like this can actually happen, or this can change into a greater way. So we call this like a speculative design. So it's kind of like a shared discourse, because we're not only working with architects, right? It's an interdisciplinary approach. So I feel like as a young architect or designers, we actually need the floor to stand on, taste on, and speak from, because most of the time, a lot of people have ideas. They cannot test it out. And then if they don't taste it out, how can they actually change from experimental space into something more long-term or physical. So from that project that I just showed you in Lee Garden Plaza, right now we're talking with the owner to kind of renovating the space and building it into more of an urban commonplace for the cities, which I'm very excited about. And so like, we wanted to do it more like a district-wide urban intervention. So most of the time when we do like one of the design week approach, like let's say there's like 9 exhibitions laid out in one street, we don't actually only end it in a way like, oh, okay, we have like 10,000 people coming or we have 20,000 people coming, that's it. But then we also have the ending of like doing the framework and then doing this district-wide strategic development plan, and we give it to the municipality, we work together. So one of the key approaches that we feel like festival is just like a starting point, but the stories or the design needs to go on, and the things that you collectively do needs to mean something. Even small things or small questions that you talk to the people around, it can mean something. So yeah, because I feel like architecture can be soft, it can be resilient, it can came from the people that actually live in it. So it doesn't necessarily need to be monumental or need to be solidary. It can be gentle, but it can still be impactful because it can grow together with the people. It can create a sense of belonging, and it can also make people feel like, okay, they have hope in the city. And us as an architect, I feel like that is one of our roles. It doesn't necessarily need to be your whole life to dedicate it into this kind of type of project, but I think as we study as an architect, this is kind of a thing that we have in our minds all the time. So it's a good practice to work on this kind of project once in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Jen, for the insightful, and I think it's quite an interesting intervention to a city. So it sort of engaged the community and bring a new leash of life into it. Okay, I think we'll move on to our next speaker, who is a Malaysian, very famous guy, 40 under 40 recipient. Architect Ahmad Hazman is currently a registered professional architect as well as a PAM corporate member. He has been listed as one of the emerging architects under the age of 40 in Malaysia through Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia. He completed his studies and successfully obtained his LAM Part 1 and Part 2 from University Technology Mara, Shah Alam in 2014. With more than 15 years of experience in the industry, he believes in the creation of spaces that evoke profound inspiration, elevate the human condition, and engender a symbiotic relationship with the communities and environment they encompass. Join me in welcoming Architect Ahmad Hazman to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being here, even though it's a long weekend. It's such an honor for me to be among esteemed colleagues from overseas, PAM past president, and few old and new friends. We rarely associate the word strength with design previously. When we first heard this year's theme, we are kind of fascinated with the word. But when we deep down through the definition of it, we try to find projects that emphasize or is more community-centric. So I'll be sharing one of the projects. Actually, our firm is actually a really young firm. In human years, we are still a baby, compared to Alan, who just this year celebrated his 20th anniversary. I went to his exhibition. My name is Ahmad Hazman Alif. I'm quite lucky to be listed in the 40 under 40 recipient. There are a few friends who's also a rewardee in the list. Most of them is doing the Malaysian Architecture Week exhibition. So do drop by at the ground floor as they'll be having a exhibition. It has been going around for some quite while. If you haven't been there, go and take a look. Most of the works is really interesting. Okay, this is what we have been doing for the past few years. Most of our job is basically more enticed to the corporate clients. So we are more into the, let's say, the dark side. But today I'll be sharing something is totally different, something which is not within this region. This is more towards public and community. So today I'll be sharing a public school project by Ministry of Education as well as the Public Work Department. Is a Sekolah Kebangsaan Bandar Kirara 5, which is located in Bandar Kirara. Bear in mind, this is a public school, it's not a private school. So I'll be sharing all the challenges, all the hurdles that we went through along the way. So this is a collaboration work between our practice and Shahsana Architects Planners and Berhad. So we are engaged by them to do design work. Before I start off, I would like to go a bit on the macro side, on the education part, on how important education is to the public. Coincide with what happened recently. If you've been watching the news, there's a lot of issues, attacks on the education part. So when we prepare this slide, all the issues hasn't come up yet, but it's still a major or a big part in our nation. It's not just on the nation, it's basically the pillar of the civilization itself. I like to echo what Tun Mahathir, who has been here on this stage last few weeks, if not last month, on how education is actually building character, discipline, and values. So, okay, before we start with the design, we deep down go into the issues that has been surrounding this kind of typology. So the first issues that we come out is that the teacher-student ratio, especially in Malaysia. So we try to compare between three major cities in Malaysia. You can see a substantial or staggering different in terms of number for Selangor compared to, even though Johor or Penang is a big city, but we are not a policymaker. As an architect, we don't do policymaker. We don't have a big say on this, but we still can play a part. So thus come the ideas of, within this constraint or issues, we decided that we need to do something like a flexible, well-designed learning environment that support both teacher and student. This is not on a one-sided issue, so it's basically both the teachers and students need to be properly in a good surrounding. So the actual scenario for this issue is that the class size often remains high. It's usually around 30 or 40 students per class now. It's not this much when I was in school, but still the numbers is getting worse. And the overcrowded classroom is due to the fixed size by the KPM or the Ministry of Education. So when we are starting to do the work, we have been given a long list of requirements and guidelines to follow from. Okay, and the uneven teacher distribution is also a main issue. The limited classroom led schools to adopt two-session system. I believe that part Alan already mentioned. A two-session school is where you have a morning session and an evening session. I have been brought by that same system. So a single session is actually, of course, better for the quality of the education, but there's a certain limitation on the infrastructure and the building that led to this double session. If you see the comparison between the three major cities, again, Selangor or Klang Valley is still compared to the other state is really high. Next is the issues of repetitive and standard design. I believe Alan also touched on that. Actually, in the beginning, the business side in the office voiced out on the ideas of having something that is easier on the business side, which is something typical, something repetitive, is easy on the business side. But luckily, we have a few people, especially Ahmad who's here. He's actually my conscious voice. It's like the Jiminy Cricket on Pinocchio's shoulder that keep me sane and help me on this. So basically, he suggested that we need to look at this opportunity to do the design properly, rather than looking on more on the business side, which should be repetitive, standard. So this is the common visual for my international friend. This is a common school in Malaysia, regardless of secondary school, primary school. Basically, it's a repetitive templates. It's quite easy, and it doesn't reflect to any local context. A school in Hulu Langat maybe can be the same as in Shah Alam, so it doesn't responding to any context or environment. So the issue of having a mass-produced building, when we're talking about the concept or the idea of the strength for design, where we need to design for the community, and this is totally contradict on whatever we are going forward. So then there's no sense of ownership and the community. There's no student coming in and won't have an ownership or sense of belonging to the school. So, but we do understand why it is repetitive. Alan also briefly mentioned about this. Is because of the timeline. Everything has been done before. Why fix something that is not broken? For some people, but for us as architects, there are certain things that we believe that we need to improve. The cost efficiency, maybe if you're doing something that is similar or repetitive, we already know the bottom line or the cost. And it's of course the faster delivery. When doing something that has been done, you know the actual timeline. But at what cost? What are the impacts when we are looking at that positive side, but at what cost? We are prioritizing more on quantity rather than having a quality or a properly designed or made school. You create an inspiring environment. I believe personally that that's the main contribution to what happenings in the school nowadays. The current issues, students going into school, it's just something that is repetitive or something that they have to do, rather than they want to go to school. Then disconnected space, where you have spaces that focus mainly on functionality rather than a space that spurs creativity. And next is the poor climate response. When you have something that is typical and something is repetitive, you won't do something that is actually responding to the climate. Next, when we have all the issues, we sit down and brainstorm at the office on what we are going to do. The first idea is we try to reimagine the school with all the main ideas or principle of what a school should be. Then we reimagine it to be in a different kind of way that we are trying to enhance or maximize the potential of the children. Thus come the ideas of tree of growth. So our ideas of school is like a tree, where the class is the roots and every spaces is interconnected with each other. Where you have the canopy, where you have the trunk, it's like a tree, and tree will grow from nutrient as well as education. So in literal way, in physical way, we try to achieve with this kind of concept. Then we go to our strategy. So when we have the trees of knowledge, then we break into three main strategy, which is the first one is the capacity planning. We try to design something that is flexible and modular, that can maximize the learning capacity without compromising the comfort. When we have the comfort side, we have the function side, we try to reimagine into a different kind of space planning. Next is, I've mentioned earlier on the contextual design, we try to create something that is suited for Banda Kirara rather than something that is different or in other region. Then we reimagine spaces, space that is mundane or boring like the corridor, staircases where previously it's just a spaces that connect from point A to point B, but now we're trying to treat it as an opportunity to have a play learning or informal learning between those spaces. Then we break the strategies into how we are going to implement into the actual design. Okay, for the capacity planning, we did a study on the modular classroom. We're trying to create a classroom that can be break into a different kind of room and that can adapt to group sizes, arrangement, and other activities. Then we segregate the upper and lower divisions because for primary school there's a lower level and the upper level, which is standard 1 until standard 3 and standard 4 until standard 6. Both have different kind of needs, so we try to design based on the needs of different age group. Next is the contextual design. We design to passive design response. This is basically, I believe, most of the architect is trying to adapt in the design, which is the orientation, ventilation, and all this climate parts. Next is a furniture design. When we did it's basically a new school, so all the scope is under us. So we have the opportunity to design the furniture. So we took a bit of time, separate a team just for this idea. So we create age-appropriate furniture. On the business side, it may take a bit of toll on the office, but we believe this is important. Without the actual or appropriate furniture, the school will be just a building or a shell. Next is the main part, which is the reimagining the spaces. The first one is we activate the staircase. Later, I'll go into details on how we design the staircase to suit all the informal learning on the additional activities that can be done there, and also the corridors. Okay, I'll go into the site. The site is actually at Banda Kirara and is nearby the Jalan Kirara 5. Okay, the main landmark to the site is actually the big IPD Serdang. And this is the different school that has been surrounding the site. Even though there's quite a number of schools, but if you can see from the map, it's a hugely dense populated area. One of the challenges that we are facing, the project is currently under construction. Most of the architect knows if you have a mature housing or development around it, it's kind of a bit tough, I can see. Yeah, so it's in the middle of housing development. Not housing development, housing population. Okay, this is the detailed study on the student ratio. Previously, we went into Klang Valley. Now it's the ratio within the area. Even though there's a few numbers of schools, but still the student ratio in the area is quite high. Most of the schools in the locality is having a 2 session. Okay, we go on to the design process. When we are given the site, the actual acreage of the site is 6.21 acres. In a school term, 6.21 is not big, it's not adequate. Yes, there's a lot of things need, with all the requirements by the Ministry of Education, with all the requirements by the state education, 6.21 is quite tough. And it is in a major residential area. And the local authority requirement, we need to sacrifice part of the land. Imagine having a 6.21 acres of land, which is not enough, but still we need to surrender part of it for road upgrading work. So we need to upgrade from existing 50 feet road to make it a 66 feet road. This is by the local authority. So we have like a small cake, someone took a slice of our cake. Next is another constraint. So as an architect, what are we without constraint? So next constraint is the original site contour, which ranging from 45 meter from sea level up to 51 meter sea level. With that, with certain budget that was given to us, we need to play around with this kind of contour. So we discussed with engineer, rather than having money spent on earthwork, retaining walls, so we did to find a solution that is more on the architecture side so that we can save on this infra cost so that it can be put into the building cost. So we design according to the platform. Thus, we created 3 major platform area. So the major flat area we dedicated for the main building school block, which luckily coincide with the only appropriate entrance area. So that's one of the challenges as well. There's only a few places that is appropriate to do the ingress and egress. Next is the placement of sports facility, which is on a different level than the school level. But we look at the opportunity of having a different level. So the level that's surrounded the sports facility or field creates a natural grandstand. The different level of this platform and the supporting facilities create a certain multi-purpose, multi-use of spaces. This is the placement of other components, which is the requirement for preschool. We learn about PPKI or a place supporting facilities to support special needs students. Okay, then the component of a school block, there's a few lists of requirements that we have complied, which is the special education, which is the special need, the PPKI. All the laboratory, there's a certain requirements that certain spaces need to be on the ground floor, certain spaces need to be here. So we try to adapt to that, but to put our design process or thought in that as well. So this is the whole school block component. We separated the lower age student group and the upper stage school group and the administration that can oversee everything. And the orientation of the building is according to the sun circulation so that we can have a better sun shading. And this has created a mini pocketed space that I believe it's naturally being a good sunshade area for students, but within this whole big spaces. And the assembly area is in between these 2 blocks, is in between building, is quietly shaded, and the airflow we took into consideration. Then it does not just an assembly area, it create an informal learning spaces. This is the heart or main part of the design. We designed the library to be at the center of the school compound, and we designed the library to be a bit different. So the library is actually interconnected a few places or spaces inside the school. And next is the placement of canteen, where we decided to do it as a secondary, or the second use of the canteen is for the waiting area for students. Rather than having students do not know where to wait for their children, the canteen act as a place where students can sit there and wait for their parents. And also, in a way, it is establish a sense of welcoming. And next is a surau placement. We try to break the monotony of the block arrangement. We tilt the surau, giving the idea of following the Qiblat direction. In a way, it creates a different sense of orientation and a sense of coming into the school, where you can see the bigger part of the school going into one focus area. All the sports facility is placed nearby the field so that it can correlate and interrelated more towards the field. The drop-off zone is separated because we are required to provide two separate drop-off zones, which is the first one is for the PPKI and the second one is the primary students. So certain concentration as well as the service area. So this is the final outlook of the overall massing of the school. Okay, then I'll go into the design components. This is the graphical version of the massing that I've mentioned. So there's a few areas that I've mentioned earlier. The library is actually the red colored one. It's located in the middle of the school. And the canteen was located at the main entrance, like I mentioned, is a secondary place for students to wait. This is the outlook of the coming in at the going into the assembly area. Okay, this is from the field overlooking the academic building. Later, I'll touch a bit on the staircase, or the yellow color staircase, which is one of the concepts that we try to sell to the ministry. Okay, this is the library. It's located in the middle of the school. How actually every part of the design is actually a battle on convincing the ministry to accept this. One of the way that we try to convince the ministry to accept this library is that we told them that during the assembly, all the teachers, you don't have to do a separate roof. All the teachers can sit under the library. So it provide a proper shade for the teachers, and all the students can have that view overlooking the library. So that's how we sell this library idea. Okay, we go into the detail, which is the design of classroom, or the first design component. We went into study on how what we think that is a good classroom. This is a different criteria that we on the ventilation, the color, the greenery, the data walls. So at the main part is the flexible seating arrangement. Rather than just having an enclosed wall and a certain fixed type of arrangement, we try to study on what is a good. Okay, we went into research, then come out with three common arrangement of classroom. The first one is the traditional. Next is the herringbone, and the horseshoe. It's three different common arrangement, but we convinced the ministry to do a one size classroom, break away from the common or normal size that can fit any type of seating arrangement. So regardless of whatever the class need or the teachers need, this classroom can accommodate that. And of course, the one I mentioned about the flexible learning, the classroom can be a collaborative spaces where the classroom can connect to other classroom, creating a more flexible spaces where you can just not have the classroom, you can have a workshop, seminar, and even if the exam hall is not enough, you can use the classroom as an exam hall. Next is the staircases. So we redefine on how staircases should be. This is one of the staircases that we did. A staircases that can create not just on the circulation part, but it create an interactive or informal learning. Staircases where you have a platform where if the classroom is not enough, teachers, students can use the staircase to do studies or performance and every sort of way. So this is another staircase that we did on the another block. So using the same concept but different kind of approach, as this is more suited to a standard 4 to standard 6, where they need a bigger and higher volume of area. So this is within the creating the community within the school. The student can use it because last time, if you're Malaysian, you know you have the pengakap, the persatuan, all everything. So these spaces can be used for all the extracurricular activity. So this is the outlook of how the staircase looks like. So this is the one that I've mentioned earlier. So the staircase for us is beyond from just a circulation. It invites interaction, and looking at this thing from today's perspective with all the issues that coming in into education, is really sad to hear all the murders, rape, all those things. When we designed this thing, that is not a big issue yet. But looking at this, when we designed this, we kind of think this will help in terms of the natural surveillance from the teacher, where you don't have pocket space where students can hide. I used to come at a place where students know where to smoke, where to jump from the fence. So this kind of area promotes opens and natural surveillance, not just from the teachers, from the guards, from the workers. So that's looking into today's perspective, we hope that helps. Okay, next is the staircase. This is within the library that I mentioned earlier. So the staircase design in the library this is not typical standard library. We use the staircase as a vertical and part of the program within the library. This is the outlook or rendering of the internal part of the library. So the staircase inside the library is designed for teachers to use for a different type of learning. Oh, okay. This is the current progress at site. At this stage, we are quite satisfied with the performance of the contractor. We hope to see this in place within these few years, maybe. So the overall current progress at site, so it's quite challenging. Talking from design side into the project management part is kind of a bit tricky with this kind of neighborhood, but currently we managed to handle it quite well. Okay, this is the overall or facade outlook from the main facade or the entrance. So the tilt part that I mentioned on the surau block, that is the one that create the orange block. So that is the different on how we define the block. This is the naturally pocket space for students that I mentioned earlier when we design or place the block. So this space happen naturally. So it's an informal space, it's a space where students can gather, and it's located, because we place the administration block at a place where they can supervise or monitor everything. So this kind of spaces will be visible and accessible to the teachers. So this is another outlook. This is the quote. We think that we borrow this quote from the internet. We believe that school is not just it's not just an institution. It's actually an open field or open playground for a lower age student. And this is the one that I've mentioned where the different platform level create a natural grandstand. This is the field overlooking the Gelanggang. Is a multi-purpose hall. Actually, on top is multi-purpose hall, but we design it, it can be functionally used as a grandstand as well. So when there's any event, like a sports day, prize giving ceremony, teachers can sit on the higher platform overlooking the students. This happened naturally through the design. Yes, we believe that the design of school is more than bricks and wall. It's actually the school itself is actually the teacher for the student. It can create and cultivate that. Okay, I'll end with this quote that we did it on our own. We derived on our own. This is not a story about strength as power. It's a story about resilience, patience, and quiet defiance. Yes, we defy a few things to sell our idea. We try to convince a lot of things to make this happen. It is about spaces that stand not because they resist change, but because they learn to adapt. Because we believe that true strength is not built, it's grown. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Architect Hazman, for the sharing on how you're attempting to reinvent the school typology. Quite an interesting approach to that. Okay, now we'll move on to our last speaker, Architect Anand Sonecha from India, established C Lab and is based in Ahmedabad, India in 2015. His practice began with projects at the historical Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad, where Mahatma Gandhi lived and led the struggle for India's independence. These early works included the renovation of a dilapidated heritage houses into volunteer homes and the construction of Jai Jagat Theatre, a commemorative project built as part of the ashram centenarian celebration. C Lab's work has been exhibited worldwide, including in India, London, Paris, South Korea, and currently their work is being exhibited at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London as part of the Design and Disability exhibition. Please join me to welcome Architect Anand to stage.
Thank you, Pam, for generously inviting me and for the hospitality. Thank you, Professor Veronica, Esmon, and Atika for the support. It is a pleasure to meet you all. And on the occasion of World Architectures Day, it is my honor to be here with all of you and the distinguished speaker. Today I'm going to show 3 projects in detail, which may touch upon the theme of the forum, resilient structures to communities built to endure and thrive. So the first project I'm going to show is Jai Jagat Theatre, which we completed in 2017 as a part of 100 years of Sabarmati Ashram. I'll give a bit of context of this place. So I work and live in Ahmedabad. It's in the western part of India. As I was telling my friends that Ahmedabad has unique history with a lot of great historical buildings as well as modern buildings by Le Corbusier and Louis Kahn. So we are blessed with good buildings, but at the same time it is a big baggage for young architects to practice. It's difficult to practice in that city with all these great examples. But also the city has great political history because Mahatma Gandhi, our father of our nation, he lived and led the struggle of independence from 1917 to 1930, a very important period for the struggle of independence in our country. So in 1917, Mahatma Gandhi established a community living in Sabarmati Ashram, and that's where he lived 13 years, a very important aspect of our history. And when we were commissioned to build a small amphitheater in the precinct, I was very curious about how that place has evolved over the period of time. So we didn't have much documents through which we were able to understand how the urban form was evolved. So we tried to create speculative drawings by talking to the people, the older generation of the place, just to understand what the land was about. There are some very interesting stories on the way we figured out that Mahatma Gandhi chose this piece of land. I don't know if these stories are absolutely true, but there is a strong myth. Gandhiji chose this piece of land on the river Sabarmati. So there is this river Sabarmati, and he chose this piece of land in between the crematorium and the Sabarmati jail. So he used to say that as a satyagrahi, for the struggle for independence, either you go to jail or either you die. So it's better to be in between. So this was a kind of place, very raw, very unused, and over the period of time, this community living expanded because a lot of people joined the struggle of independence, and they moved in the ashram. This was the first building where Gandhiji lived. Later, he moved to this place, Hriday Kunj, which is also a beautiful structure. And then, over the period of time, different structure emerged. So this was a big dormitory where young freedom fighters used to stay. There was a school where young children used to study of the families of the people living in the community. And there was this Sikshak Niyomwas, which was where the teachers used to stay. So it was a very holistic community living, and it was like a small village, and it was a barren land. And over the period of time, there was a lot of plantation of neem trees, which is also a very important story. But the campus evolved over the period of time. Later, in 1960s, Charles Correa, an important Indian architect, he built a memorial museum in the memory of Mahatma Gandhi. So this was built in 60s. This is where Gandhiji used to live, so it's a very close proximity. There's a big riverfront development that has happened over the last 15 years. And now there is a big road which cuts across this whole precinct, dividing this place into two parts. So we were fortunate to work on 3 projects in ashram, but I'm going to show you one. So the place where we were building the amphitheater was on the very quiet corner of the ashram, which is here. Also, ashram has a very interesting history and also the modern history. So more than 1,000 students from remote villages and towns study and live in ashram, and they did not have a particular good place for performances to practice their skill, and they had to travel long distances. So people of ashram decided that we will build a small amphitheater as a part of 100 years of celebration, as a place of expression and togetherness. So as I said that this was the place where we were given the location to build. This is Hriday Kunj, where Gandhiji lived, memorial museum, and opposite to that there's a school, a small library, and a kindergarten, and this is where we planned to build the amphitheater. Initially, we were given this plot in which they asked us to locate the theater the way we wanted. And after studying the site and looking at the characteristic of the place, we decided this corner where it's not very visible from the entrance. And I was particular about that location because it was a new intervention, and this place had a very powerful and grounded buildings. Like there were like tall neem trees and very grounded buildings, and I did not want it to change its character, but at the same time, we were building in today's time, so it should have its own voice. So the balance was a question that I was been constantly thinking. So this was the kind of characteristic of the land. As you can see that there are these very tall neem trees, 80, 90 years old, a small kindergarten, and it's a very raw kind of a landscape. It's very hard to find this kind of unpaved, unassuming kind of landscape nowadays in Ahmedabad, where everything is paved and formalized. But this place had that softness, that characteristic that I thought that it was very important to retain. And also at the same time, I was building the amphitheater for the first time. I had never built of such type, so I was also very curious about how people throughout the history have thought about this type itself. In our culture, if there is a type that we have thought. So there was a parallel study that I was looking at it. And of course, there's this Greek and Roman theaters are some very good examples that one has the access to the history, but also in our culture, I also found out in India, the Sita Bengra and Jogimara caves had that tradition of theater in the performances, but not in a formal way, but in a very informal way. So I was looking at the Theater of Dionysus in Acropolis and in Athens, and on studying them, I realized that there is a very fine balance between human and nature. So the theater just becomes the part of the landscape, and then there is a harmony. And whereas Roman theaters were different than the Greek theaters, where it's like object in plane, and but they create the landscape through the arches. So they create that own sort of built form, and here I felt that humans dominate the nature. It's a very crude way to put. It's just a very broad comparison I was looking at. But whereas in our culture, I think what was quite interesting that, as I said, in Sita Bengra and Jogimara caves, what I really felt that there was a very blurred boundary between nature and humans, and it was quite fascinating that this is also 4th century BC, at the time where Theater of Dionysus and other theaters were in place, where in our culture it was very informal place where the performers would stand here. These plinths are recent, but that there was this terrain which would go like this, and then there was a very informal gathering and the performance was happening. A very great poet, Kalidas, wrote Meghdut here. So it was quite an inspiring example for us to also look into our culture, that how theater was looked at. Of course, in the recent history, this is Teatro Olimpico by Palladio. Here I got very fascinated about how he created, of course this is again a very Roman way of building, but I think what evolved was how the stage becomes the part of the performance. So he created this illusion. So this is the stage, and he creates these streets, the illusions through perspective, that the performance, the stage and the scenario becomes the part of the performance. So this was very interesting way to look at it, whereas the Greeks were looking at the landscape, and the landscape becomes a part of the performance. But here there's a very different kind of an approach. And in a very small space, how you create those illusions. That's something which was quite fascinating in this. Whereas Aldo Rossi brought a very different idea about the theater. So this is the floating theater. So this is a part of the Biennale, and what was interesting is that the idea of the place itself was questioned, that the theater goes to place and becomes the part of that place itself. So there was a universal quality to the idea of theater itself. So with these learnings, I also thinking about the place we were building, so there were different challenges. So as I said earlier, that this was the entry, the library and the kindergarten, and I was choosing this corner, which was the most, is the lowest part of the entire site where there is a waterlogging, and a very unusual corner to work with. But the advantage I thought was that it is a very quiet place with beautiful tall tree, and it is hidden. And again, to build a theater for 300 people, 300 students, how can you create a theater which is grounded in, because in the context, as I said, that there are single-story structures, and they're very beautiful buildings, and I thought to impose a large structure would be a problem. So I was looking at how I could work with the ground and control the scale of the building. So our strategy was that this is the ground. So I partially buried the theater underground, and only 1.8 meters I brought the theater up so that it becomes like a very humane scale in nature. But of course, it's a low-lying area, and it is foolish to bring the theater down in a low-lying area, but we tried to solve it in different way. I'll just share it with you. So this is the diagram through which one can understand. So we excavated 1.8 meters below ground, and because we were going down and it was a low-lying area, so we created like a 75,000 liters of capacity of water tank to bring the water in, because Ahmedabad is a hot, dry climate, and we have a tradition of harvesting rainwater in most of our homes in Ahmedabad. So we thought that catching the water is something, a very common thing in Ahmedabad, and we'll just use that idea, and with that 75,000 liters of water, we could also irrigate the landscape around, because it's a very dry climate and the water is a scarcity, and it's a resource for us. And then we built the stage over the water tank, and then the stairs which people can sit, and then the performance can happen here. But again, when we were going down, also we were losing the connection with the outside, because there are some beautiful trees and interesting sights, and that's where I was starting to think about this, the building of Palladio, that how the built form becomes a part of the performance. So we added the elements of a balcony or the stairs, ceremonial stairs, where performers would come, and some people would be standing here, and we created these large openings through which we create visual connection, very specific visual connections. And then you can enjoy the performance at through different places, because the height is low, so one can just peep in through the opening, one can see the balcony. So it has a different point of views. And the geometry was very simple. It's like two circles, one is shifted to create this spiral, and then we created this narrow alley through which after the performance, the performers can exit. And this is the stage, the seating, and there's a ramp that brings you down to the performance stage. And this is the water tank which I was mentioning. So this is the plan. There's a ramp that brings you down. Almost from outside is a a wall. You can't understand what is there inside, but then you move in, it slowly unfolds with this balcony, then the stairs, and then the big stage, and then this whole place unfolds. And this is the place where the performer would exit and go out to the other place where get ready. These are the model photographs, but for me, this place was the most important place, which is the not built space, like in Sita Bengra and Jogimara caves, where it's like a large gathering space with different seatings and steps where people would meet. And then this becomes like a more formal space, which was needed from the brief that students need to perform in public. They need to build the confidence. So there was a need of formality, but this place, I feel it was the essence of the project. This is the section through which you could understand the level. This is the ground, this is stage, and this is the water tank that I was mentioning. And these openings also were important because this is for children, so I wanted to make, at the scale of the children, that it becomes like a very child-friendly space through which they relate to the place. So all the openings are in relation to the scale of the children. Oops. Oh, sorry. I don't know what. Okay. Sorry, this is not working. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Also, like, the entry was important because the way you would enter under the trees, so we created these paths with like small pause spaces where children could sit, and then that's where they enter to this large plaza, and that's where the theater is revealed. So from here you can't understand, and then only slowly at this point the whole place is revealed. So this is the whole master plan with the theater. So we built one project here, one house. So this is in relation to the whole complex. So this is the entry. This is after the theater was built. So as you can see that you can't understand that there is a theater there. Even the paths that we had created, I made it in brick and almost the same color as the land. So almost it merges as if there was nothing or it was always there. So it's something that I was wanting to be very seamless in the existing landscape. So as you move along, slowly then from the part or the path, this theater is revealed. As I said that we were building in today's time, so also it had to have its own life and expression. So I did not want to mimic what was there, but to also understand the essence of the existing buildings and try to create a solution which is true for the users and true for the time that we are living. So this is the plaza that I was mentioning. This big neem tree was anchor point, and this is where the theater is revealed, and with this narrow opening where the ramp starts. So this is the plaza which is made in brick. When of course people occupy the place, it has its meaning because then it transforms. It no longer remains an architectural object, but it becomes a place where people come together and celebrate, and it becomes alive. And then the scale, as I was sharing, that was low, and then also the rear landscape, also I didn't want to hinder much, so then it also helps to create that framed views. And this gathering space, as I said, that used in different ways, that sometimes there's an outdoor classes happening where of the kindergarten or the school whenever the climate is good. Or sometimes the people from the ashram, they come and gather there because it's a very quiet corner. And evenings are very peaceful there. And then in rains, it changes. So this place constantly transforms. So this is where the ramp starts. This is the stage. And this is during the performance. As I was sharing that we created this large openings because then there's this old building, so we thought that we'll just, from the stage you can always be in connection. These are some elements through which people get different point of views to enjoy the performance. Also, this alley becomes like a hideaway place where the performers, after the performance, they hide, they pick in. So it is a playful element as well. And people occupy this in a very different way. So some people who, when the theater is full and if they want to just look at the performance for a while, then they stand out and they look in. So there are different ways through which you interact with the theater. And there was this beautiful water tank. When I went to the site for the first time, this was a very stark concrete element, very distinct. And it remained in my mind as a very stark element. And I thought that also we'll celebrate that. So we created that opening to look at the tank as well. And of course, when as an architect, nothing you do is in isolation. You always have references in back of your mind. Sometimes it comes out consciously or unconsciously, but you are not inventing anything, but you are just trying to reinterpret what you know or what you have seen in your own way. So this is the staircase that I really got fascinated when I saw in Fatehpur Sikri, beautiful complex, and it's an abandoned place right now. But this staircase was something which stayed in my mind during my visit. And while I was thinking about this, I was looking at this at the staircase. But of course, I was building in concrete. This is in stone, so there is a very different approach to it. And I just try to interpret the stair in my own way and the proportion in my own way. These are some photographs. As I was sharing, the scale was important, so all the openings are in the proportion of the children. This was the last performance. Right now, this whole place is under construction. The government of India is rehabilitating the entire campus. So this was the last performance of the amphitheater. And soon it will be again reopened in a year or two, I think. And this was the condition of the theater after some years. So it's almost hidden in the landscape, and you can't even see what's there. The second project I'm going to show is the School for the Blind and Visually Impaired Children that we had designed in Gandhinagar. Just to give a bit of context about Gandhinagar, it's a capital of our state, and it's 25 kilometers away from Ahmedabad. We were commissioned this project in 2016. It was built in 2021 after a lot of struggles and efforts. As many of our speakers also mentioned, that it's difficult to design a public school, and there are a lot of constraints and challenges. And one of the challenges was the budget, because the budget is always limited in the government schools. So there need to be, of course, some donors and fundraising. So it took a lot of time for this school to be built. It's not. So this was the first time that I was addressing the issue of blindness, because it's a subject that in our academics I never came across, or it's not been discussed much. So it was a very educative experience for me as well. So what I found out that blindness is a spectrum, and it is rare that it is absolute. Only 15% of people with blindness see nothing at all. The majority of people who are blind can perceive light and color, while those with different kind of impairments have varying degree of usable visions. Approximately 39 million people are blind in the world, and India accounts to 20%. It's a very large population, which is 8 million. So this school has a very interesting story, that this school was started by two friends, both blind, Rehman Bhai and Hargovind Bhai, in a very small village called Kolavra, which is very close to Gandhinagar, and in 90s, and they started the school in a small apartment building on a I think 3rd floor, with 2 rooms, with 4 students, and over the period of time, because of their hard work and great work that they were doing, many people, many students joined in. And also blindness has very interesting stories in India. Like most of the villages and small towns had no formal education facility for blind children, and there's a lot of superstitions surrounding the blindness. Many times people think it's a curse, and there is a lot of disbelief. So this residential school was dedicated to the education and well-being for the children from remote villages and small towns of Gujarat. And over the period of time, because of the work of these 2 gentlemen, government saw their hard work, so the government gave the piece of land, because the number of students were increasing, for them to operate the school. So Ahmedabad is this. So I should have put the map of India and showed the Ahmedabad first, but sorry for that. So Ahmedabad is this. There's a river Sabarmati, which cuts across the city. Old part is the east and the new part is the west. And Gandhinagar is the capital of Gujarat. So it is here. It is 25 kilometers away. It is a planned city. And the school that we have designed is in one of the sectors, 16. And this was the site. There was an existing government primary school which was defunct, and they occupied as the school. So on the ground floor, girls and boys stay, and on the first floor they used to study. And there was this small dining space. And this was like a large piece of land, 9,000 square meters approximately, and with almost no trees. And there were these government housing around, and then there was this beautiful garden here. And in the existing buildings, it was not a great condition, because the existing building was a primary defunct school, which was adapted to for the hostel in the school. So you can see this on this side the boys stayed, this side girls stayed, and it was not a very good condition. They were living in bunk bed in very crunched space. And on the first floor, there are makeshift classrooms with this kind of bench seating, which was also not a very pleasant condition, because the sound used to travel, and it really used to bother students. So the brief was to design a new school with 10 classroom, music room, and renovate the existing building and the hostel facility for blind children to live comfortably. And in also addition to the hostel facility, the brief also mentioned that the hostel also aims to invite young students who are studying in different colleges in Gandhinagar, and also the senior citizen who are alone, to create a mixed community living, because what we have observed is that the campuses for blind students, they are like silos. They have no connection with the city, and they operate in their own world. So I think this mixed community living was something which would also bring a lot of awareness about blindness, as well as it creates more relationship with different people. Again, the land was 9,000 square meters, 81 meters long, 57 meters wide. And for me, I think it was a challenge, because how do you create spaces for students who are visually impaired so that they do not get lost in this large piece of land? So that's something which was always there in the mind. And of course, as I said earlier, that I didn't have much experience about the issue. I was also learning while working on the project, reading about things. So my first intuitive idea was that there's this old hostel building. So I was thinking that I'll build a very simple, long, linear building next to it as a response, which has classrooms and a corridor, because then it's a very simple spatial organization through which students could identify and distinguish spaces. But of course, in the design process, the program also evolves, and there is a clarity that different stakeholders get. So while in the design process itself, since the brief was not final, while working it evolved, and there were some additions that had happened. And then because of the brief, also one has to also relook at the approaches. So then I understood that with the new brief, it's no longer possible to build in such space, which I thought that here I wanted to keep it for the future expansion or future growth. But then with the new brief, I was compelled to work on this area. And this was my another sketch that, okay, because if I'm working on this big piece of land, how am I going to control the scale of it? So I thought that I'll create like a perimeter, a very strong boundary, and create like a garden in between, like an oasis, and then the classrooms are in that garden. So that was like a very intuitive idea. And then there are some things that you can add over the period of time. So these were like some of the initial sketches of that idea. There's a perimeter, but then these classrooms are like cells that can be added as an over a period of time. And then they have different volumes through which they can get different quality of light, different spatial experiences, so that students can distinguish places and classes. So, which I'm going to share more in the next slides. And of course, there was a budget constraint. So I thought that we do the essential part, and then it keeps changing and adding over the time. So these are different iterations of that process. But then in 2018, yes, I had a chance to go to the United States and worked at Perkins School for the Blind. It's in Massachusetts, in Watertown. It's a beautiful campus. It is where the Helen Keller and Laura Bridgman and Anne Sullivan, the stalwarts, had studied and worked here. And when I saw the campus, I was really amazed by the place itself. Charles Dickens, this great author, he wrote American Notes there, and that's the only positive thing he wrote about America in his notes. And it is a remarkable campus. It was built in 1829. It is the first school for blind in the United States. I met some great people there who really helped me to clarify the idea of the school. And this is where the students used to live. It's just a beautiful campus. And also I saw that the difference I felt was that the education was really good there, and the students were very independent, and the disability was not looked at as like a pity, but it looked at in a very different way through which everyone was treated equally, and something that I got really inspired. I was working in a toddlers program assisting teachers, and also I was working on the audio library for 4 months. But in the process, I was silently observing how students move, what are the design issues that they have tried to solve, and how they have incorporated the accessibility issue in their buildings. So what I learned from Perkins is that you can create different volumes, and you can use the sense of hearing to identify different volumes. Then there are materials, wall and the floor textures, which we can use to the sense of touch. And you can also plant different aromatic plants and trees through which you can identify spaces through sense of smell, as well as the light and the contrasting colors are something which they were very particular about for the low vision and the partial vision students. So this was some great learning from me, and also when I showed my design to them, one of the teachers gave me a good critique that form didn't make sense because in the circle there are no edges, and then you need to have edges to identify where you are. So it was a very simple discussion, but I got an essence of what the professor was saying, that I need to look at the geometry in a very sensitive way. So they asked me that it's not a good idea to work with like a geometry which has no edges, or geometry which has equal edges, which is like a square. I need to look at more rectilinear shapes through which there are two longer sides and two shorter sides through which one can understand the geometry itself for the students, which was a very good learning experience. Coming back to India then, of course, working with the teachers and the students, the whole process evolved, and this is the place where I decided to build. Again, as I said, that my approach changed after going to Perkins. I started with this rectilinear space, but with the ideas which had already evolved, taking some things forward, but some things changed, and I thought that this center part is the garden. This is the movement space with different dimensions. So this is the entry space, which is 3.6 meters wide and 3.6 meters high. So there is a very different sense of scale, and when you talk, it's a very different sensation in that space. And then opposite to that large space is a very narrow space and a very low space. So it is 1.8 meters and 2.6 meters, 2.26 meters. And then the roof slopes down gradually on the longer side. So when you speak on this part of the corridor, it's a very different kind of a sensation compared to the entry. So this was a very simple spatial recognition for students that wherever you are in the entry, when you speak, there's a different kind of an echo, and when you're opposite side of the entry is where the other spaces are. So I think this helped at least to distinguish two different kind of spaces. And then this idea of the cells as a classroom that over the period of time they can plug in was the idea we kept intact. So the school can build like a movement space and few classrooms as they have the money, and then over the period of time they could start building the other classrooms as and when they require. And also there was a change in the strategy in which we also designed few classrooms in different shapes and volumes as special classrooms, for special activities like workshops or movie screenings. I saw in Perkins, they have descriptive movies. Students really enjoy seeing these descriptive movies. So I thought that it's such a great experience that students who are blind and visually impaired, they could experience the movies in the school. So this classroom was thought of a classroom in the day, and also it can be transformed into a movie screening place. So this is the plan of the school. As I said, that these are the special classrooms, and there are normal classrooms which are simple in geometry. Again, also it was very important how students sit and gets the attention of the teacher. So there are generally 8 to 9 students per classroom, and they sit in like this kind of formats, different formats. So the square geometry came because of the kind of seating arrangement, and each classroom has its own courtyard, which is something which was very deliberate intention, because we are from a very hot and dry climate, and our sunlight is too harsh, and low vision students are very sensitive to direct light. So we always brought the light from the courtyard, and it filters to the classrooms. So you can see there's not much openings on the outside periphery, because one, it will create a direct sunlight. Second is that also with the noise, there is a lot of distraction from the outside. And the classroom opens to the courtyards, almost like pavilions. And also rainwater, again, is like something of a resource. So recharging ground was important. So we created this percolation wells, which is like a very traditional rainwater harvesting, recharging ground. So we created very strategically those ponds. And in the special classrooms, the light was brought from the skylight. So again, this is where the question of light was solved in the special classrooms through the roof, in the other through the courtyard. And then this becomes the entry, and then this becomes the second opposite side of the entry. These are some of the studies that we also made to study the light, because it's very, this question of light in specific user is very important, because it can create the cause of discomfort. So we want to make sure that light is appropriate. And it is very difficult to control that, but we tried our best. But we also looked at the light in a different way as well, that how the light becomes like a marker of space, where it creates a contrast on the entrances. So in the special classrooms, what we created is these tall openings where the light comes from the above. It creates a contrast from the other surfaces. It marks the entry of the special classroom. Whereas, again, the light becomes like a focal point, the marker of giving the directionality. So we looked at the light in that aspect as well. And then the floor becomes like a very important part through which students understand the spaces through the sense of touch. So we used Kota stone, which is a very local and versatile stone. We use two kinds of textures, smooth and the rough. The rough texture is used here, which is dark gray. So wherever there is an entry to the classroom, we just shift the flooring slightly so that when students can understand that they are the entry. So this is the rough stone, and this is a smooth stone. And the texture was very important because many students walk barefoot. Also, you want to be very appropriately sized texture so that students don't get hurt. So floor was one aspect that we were looking at. And then the wall texture was something that was very important aspect through which one understands the spaces. So we, from the periphery of the school, we use specific texture of cent face plaster, so students understand what is the outside of the building, whereas the interior of the buildings have different textures. So wherever there is a wall on the roof, on the side of the classroom, it's smooth texture with contrasting doors, so students understand this is the wall of the classroom. Whereas this is the courtyard, and on the side of the courtyard, which is also again open to sky space, we created this semicircular pattern. So students understand that they are in the open to sky space, but they are not outside the school. So this shift, this minor shift of textures helped students to gauge where they are and identify the spaces. Whereas there was a difficult challenge that how do you understand which direction are you walking? So on the longer side, we created this horizontal textures, and on the shorter side, we created this vertical texture, so students understand they're on the shorter side or the longer side of the corridor. Again, these are just like simple markers, not thinking that student will use in that particular way. These are like subtle clues through sense of touch, smell, and sound, through which we incorporated in the building, and maybe some students use one aspect or the other. It depends on their ability and their comfort. So these are different kind of textures, and these textures were tested during the construction. So again, there were like different age group of students from age 4 or 5 to 18. So how do you create those textures which is appropriate for all? So we did a lot of sample studies, and it was very generous of this contractor that he was very patient and he kept doing the samples till we got right for most of the students. And also, as I was sharing, that there were not many trees on the campus, and I was working with a landscape architect from Ahmedabad, Lokendra Balasaria. So he gave the whole strategy about the trees. So on the campus, we planted aromatic plants and trees very specifically in the courtyards to identify the classrooms, which classrooms are what. Then there is receiving and giving, that also there are fruit trees that on the campus that it is good for students to have fruits as well as for the birds to eat fruits. And then there are specific species of trees which are good for the birds itself. And there are shade and medicinal trees also that were planted. So more than 1,000 plants and shrubs of 37 different kind of species were planted on the campus, which would invite butterfly and birds and create more diversity on the campus. And it's a very hot and dry climate, so it's not very easy that the trees will grow. But it's a sustaining efforts over the years. Every monsoon, there is a plantation that happens on the campus, and slowly it is evolving. So this was the rainwater harvesting percolation well that I was mentioning. So these are some photographs. These photographs are not important because I'm going to show how users would perceive the building. That's something which I wanted to share. Of course, as an architect, you do your best with your own ability to make the build form, but it's important how user would conceive that space. So this is the entrance of the school. How users would experience is something that we did speculative drawings through which I would like to share with you. So this is an image with students with CVI. It's a cortical cerebral visual impairment, and it's a brain-based visual impairment. It has nothing to do with the eyes, and and with the CVI, each student's lived experience is different. They see the world as a swirling mass of motion, color, and some can focus, and some really struggle to understand what they are seeing. So the colors became like a very important aspect through which it gives some sense of importance of plane. So this is the entrance of the school. This is the door of the school, but as you can see that this is how the students with CVI might perceive that space. So this is the entrance corridor of the school. We try to create this wide and tall volume to create this echo, light as a focal point, and different textures as characteristic to mark the classrooms, and also this vertical texture and the smooth texture. That was our approach. Whereas this is quite, with this light, this is the image, actual image, that the students with blindness but with light perception would perceive the space. I think it's because of the light you're not able to see, but this is this very soft form of light that students with light perception would experience, students would experience. All one can perceive is light or dark. The absence or the presence of light in the room or in the space, one does not perceive shapes or form or harsh or soft light, but this is what the student may perceive. This is with the blindness with light perception. Sorry, this. So this is the corridor. I was saying that the roof slopes down to the lower part, and students with CVI would perceive the same space like this. And also what is interesting is that, as I said, that light is a very difficult subject in this specific user group, because it can also create clutter, the light itself, that it can create like the visual issue and visual discomfort, the light itself. So it is a subject which still needs more work and study, but in the process we learned and we tried to address in our own limited understanding. And this is the west corridor, and this is how students with CVI might perceive. And also they use light as a visual target as well, that if there is a presence of some light, it gives a sense of visual direction. So it's quite fascinating that how each user with different kind of impairment relates with the space or the light in a very different way. So this is the atmosphere of the classroom. As I said, that the light is always brought from the courtyard. So we created this big doors that opens to the court, and the light is reflected, and then the teachers are here. And students with low vision would perceive the same space like this, where there is a faint glimpse of light and the space. And when the doors are closed, we created this perforated net, because in the summers when the lights, the natural light is harsh, the perforated doors even filtered the light further. It may create the comfort for the low vision students. So this is something that when the perforated door is closed, this is the difference that one get. And we reused the old benches, created these contrasting colors through which students can identify objects to the space itself. And like simple things like frame is painted black to create this contrast from the white. All the switchboards, like a lot of things that we had took into consideration about creating switchboards with contrasting colors, so students can identify the switchboards. Yeah. I wanted to share the other important part of the communication because as I said, that the founders of the school were blind and the principal of the school also blind. So how do you communicate your ideas, the design, to the users and to the stakeholders? So we started with this. This is my studio, and we started with these cardboard models, and soon to realize that they are not effective because they can understand the overall build form, but not the interior spaces. It's very difficult to understand interior spaces. So we had to change our strategy to think of a communication to the stakeholders. So we did the code of 3D printed textures after some studies. These are like different code of textures that we had evolved, and we superimposed on the plan. Sorry, I don't know, I skipped. I don't know what happened. Oops. Okay. So we superimposed on the plan, and we tried to use like a tactile drawing to communicate with the students and teachers. And then also what we did was that we created this 3D printing big blocks with the furniture embedded, so students can touch and understand that, okay, maybe our classroom arrangement would be like this. So this is the final plan of our school, and so these are the corridors textures. The corners has these dotted lines, so corners are marked like that. Entry to the classrooms are these dots, so, and it's written in Braille. Two sides of the wall has two different kinds of pattern through which one gets the sense of the directionality, and then exterior and the interior. So over the time, I think we had evolved this plan through which the communication was done. And also, we did some study about developing contrasting patterns for low vision students. This is a complex subject which needs some more work, but we tried a part plan, and I think this needs more studies and evolution through which communication to low vision and partially blind students has the potential to work. And then these are different kind of models. So this is like a cardboard model, but with contrast to explain what is the periphery of the school. So this is a compound, the existing, the new, and existing building relationship. So at different stages, we use different models and drawings to communicate the process of design. And also we did 1:1 line out, and we walked with the students and teachers to see in actual scale where each classroom is or how large is the distance. This is the last project. I don't know if I have time or I'm short. No, I can. Okay. Thank you. I'll be quick. So this is the last project, Gram Setu. It's a small community center. This was the first experience of mine to work in the rural India, which is a very different context and learning experience for me. Working in the city, but working in a village is a very different experience. I was sharing with Jan in the morning that here what I realized that making a building is not a transactional process in which you pay someone and someone builds it, but it's a very different process through which people build their buildings with their own hand with the community. It's not something that the making of the building is something transactional. So that was a very different approach. Another important lesson was that the construction was also seasonal based. So people build buildings in specific seasons. So it's not something that it is superimposed on the landscape, but there are processes and rituals through which they make the building. So it's more of a very sacred sort of process of making of a thing. It's not transactional object that one is making. So the approach itself was something very different, and the time is something that because it's an agricultural community, and because they have their own way of making things, it also takes time, and sometimes coming from the cities, I think it's a very impatient observation from the clients and others that why we are not able to build fast. But it's a very different context and situation which I thought was very meaningful, and it was a learning experience for me. So this is the kind of landscape, again a very, very dry climate with undulating terrain like this, and with this very modest houses. It's a poor farming community. And they are very humble houses made from mud and timber. But what was quite fascinating was that even though they were very different, but there was an underlying principle through which they were making of the houses. They were not using any dimensions or measures. They were using bodily dimension to make things, which was quite fascinating. And I was curious about the proportion of spaces, because how they were made and how they were used was something which the dimension was something I was really interested in, and how the sequence of spaces in terms of the use and in terms of the climate was quite fascinating, and the materiality, of course. So what I found the essence was the veranda space, which was, again, in many of the other speakers also mentioned, that it's not a finite space, it's in-between space, which is a negotiation of the inside to the nature. And I think that was very, very essential learning that I got, and also the proportion of it, how it creates that experience. So this something that I really felt I would like to replicate. And also, like, and the earth there was very suitable to build. This is built traditionally, and even today people build the houses like this. It is readily available. You just dig from the land and use the earth, and everything that they were using, that they were using in the village was from the natural materials, like this. Even the plaster, the paint was coming from the earth itself. There are different kind of earth in that village. And what I realized that even if the house is demolished one day, that everything gets integrated back to the nature was something very good to understand. And whereas in the city we are talking about the question of sustainability and use of material and frugality, but here people are living that. It's a normal way of life, and it also gave me a reflection on my own work as well, and like simple things like how do they store the seeds made from lake, the earth from the lake, or how they create these rammed earth walls with like very frugal means, but at the same time nowadays, because of the government schemes to build the houses of subsidies, people also start to build like thin brick walls and concrete structures, which gets really warm in the summers, and but people use these buildings as storage and they live in the mud houses. So it's an irony that what is happening in the village. And so this community center was an opportunity for us to also look at what exists, what potential it has, and how we can evolve that in today's time, taking their virtue and making minor changes through which we can build something which can be replicated rather than building very thin bricks and concrete houses. So, this was some of the points through which we approached the project, that we want to use building with natural material available from the location itself, learning from the traditional technique, but also reinterpreting it in today's needs, involving the people from the place itself and not bringing skilled artisans or builders from the city, but to also create a flexible system which is incremental, building rainwater harvesting, which is there, and introducing systems like buffer walls and insulation very strategically to reduce the heat gain. And during that process, I also visited Varda, which it's also an ashram where Mahatma Gandhi lived after Sabarmati ashram. So this was another community of living Mahatma Gandhi lived, and it's a very inspiring place as well. Again, it's very elemental, very grounded buildings with unassuming materials, and they are just rooted in that place. It's very vernacular. What I was really amazed was the relationship with the landscape and the built form. And they are this very, very grounded buildings. And then I also learned about a construction technique, which is this vault techniques. Oops. Maybe it wants me to stop. Okay. Thank you. I promise I'll not take more now. I'm just going to skip through very fast. Sorry, so I was mentioning about the roofing technique that I also learned from that Center for Science for Village Studies, which had these clay pots through which you just interlock them and it just stays in its place, which was also a very interesting technique that we discovered, which is good, which has good insulation, and it is fast and easy to build and at an affordable price. And the land that we got was very long plot. It's 33 meters by 340 meters with a beautiful tree, 90 years old. And it slopes like this up. This becomes like a top of the hill and it slopes down. And when I went, I could hardly see anything. It's just like a very narrow space. And this tree which I was mentioning is here. And then when you get close, the tree is revealed, and then there's this vast expanse of the landscape. So I felt that this was the ideal space to build because it's a higher point, and this was my on-site sketch, quick sketch, through which I decided to build here with this nice open. And then also I saw the Google, and I saw that 20 years before there was a house here, so it also affirmed that if someone has built before there, it makes sense to build in that same location. So this is the land, and this is where we decided to build. And we graded the land in a way that the farming can happen here, and then the build form can stay next to the tree. So this is the campus. So this is the place for the person who is managing the campus. He lives here. This is Gaushala, where the cattle shade, where the 8 or 9 cows are here. There's a volunteer stay, a toilet block, and Gram Udyog, which is like a place where the produce is packed and produced. And then we had this rainwater harvesting tank here, and the biogas, which supplies the gas to the entire campus. So again, this veranda becomes like a very important place. So this is the veranda, and the room becomes like a place where to rest in the evening, but we created this opening through in the vast landscape in a very specific way. So even this is the volunteer stay, this is the veranda. It opens to the landscape. And this is the cattle shade. Some interesting things that the owner wants the cattle shade right in front of it, because he thinks there is a very strong relationship between him and the cows, the animals, because they want to be in the visual connection, and the sound can be heard. Earlier I thought it was here, but then he asked me to do it here. It's a very different connection. And then we created this plinth where people can gather, and this becomes like a community gathering space. And the construction, again, was with the local technique, because I thought that this technique is so much refined, I didn't have to do too much, just to make small tweaks in the life of the material. So this is the earth that we just took out from that place itself, and we used to build these rammed earth walls. But what we did was we stabilized that wall with studies. We did some detailed studies of the composition of the earth, and we understood that it is very good quality earth, but we need to stabilize it for it to last a longer period of time, not to maintaining it over the period of time. So this is how the construction process was there. And this is the person who built this frame. There are some many stories, but I'm not going to go into details of it. That I think that the process of making of the building was the very important lesson for me, because each person who was involved has a particular role. Like this person, there are people in that village who do not have machine tools, and the project was slow, and this client, the person who was building, he insisted that I should work with this person because he do not have that tools, and if he doesn't get the work, then he does not have the job. So there are those very important intention of the project that through which this was made. So all the things that he made the whole shuttering with all these tools. Like this is the drilling tool that one just have to use that, but there is no machinery involved. So this is during the construction. We also made changes into the electrical part of it. Like again, the minor changes in the construction, that in the village, the electrical is not embedded in the earth construction, so we try to improve that electrical, or we try to improve the corners, how to make corners straight, like very minor things, but we try to evolve that construction. And of course, then there is always like a critique. People from the village, they gather and they meet, and then they give their feedback. And many times I realized that some of their feedbacks were so important. I'll just give a very brief example that the sand was a very expensive material there. And as an architect working with a structure engineer, the structure engineer is very specific about the composition of sand or the stone, the kapchi stone. But in the village, people don't use sand because the earth itself has a great composition of the sand. So when they question that why you don't use the earth itself as a process of making the mortar, also brings a lot of question of construction. And then I go back to the structure engineer and discuss this, and then things change. So I think with this feedback loop, I think it also made us aware that there are certain things that we do not question in the construction. We take it as a standard, which we could make a change. And he's the builder of the roof. And also in the roofing technique, we evolved the cups. So this is the original that we learned from that Center for Science for Village Studies. But we changed the proportion slightly. And in per square meter, we could, we were using 103. But with slight variation in the proportion, we were able to build with 65. So there was a lot of save of money as well as the time and the labor. So like with the small interventions, I think we were able to create a cost-effective system. So this is during the construction of the roof. This is again during the construction. And then we also identified that 4 different kinds of earth. And then people from the village showed us where each earth comes from and what its meaning and where it should be used. Yeah, so these are, and then we also found out that there are so many discarded doors and windows of demolished houses. So, and there are beautiful wood, good quality wood doors and windows. So we chose and we repaired some, and we reused in our buildings. Earlier I had designed all the doors and windows specifically, but then when I saw this, I thought that this is an opportunity to reuse these materials. So we used to tag each doors, and then we used to come back to our drawing board and rework the proportion of the openings. This is the rainwater harvesting tank, the biogas. And this gas is good enough for cooking for 4 or 5 people a day. So this comes from the 25 kgs of the cow dung, that comes from the cattle shed. So this is a very normal and natural process in that village. And these are some finishes. So this is built. It was inaugurated 1 week ago. So this is a gathering space. Thank you very much for listening patiently.
Thank you, Architect Anand, for the, I think it's quite a poetic touch to all your work, I guess, like the finesse in how you construct buildings. Okay, I think, okay, let's show of hand, because we are a democratic country. Who wants a moderating session? If not, we'll just proceed with lunch because I think it's running out of time. So if you have any questions, you can ask the speaker. So maybe who wants a moderating session, or, okay, maybe who wants lunch better? So, okay, then we'll go for lunch. If you have any question, feel free to approach the speaker. Once again, sorry for the hiccup on the projector. And thank you so much for spending your Saturday